Welcome, listeners, to another episode of Lost Lieutenant. I'm your host, Jacob, and I'm joined by.
Josh.
Yeah, Nick.
And today's episode will be focusing on ITS 15. A little bit late, but better than never. So this will be maybe like a little bit more than first impressions, like a mid impressions sort of thing. Because I think we've got I think we've all got a decent amount of games under our belts, even with some of the new scenarios.
First, second, and third impressions. Let's go with that.
Yes.
Yeah, something like that. So, unlike some other podcasts that'll jump straight in and have to make corrections later on and apologies to Coverspelly, we can do the exact same thing but claim that we've had experience.
Yes, we still make mistakes and have to apologize. And
Yeah. But before we get into it, standard sort of thing, we're going to do a catch up. I'm going to say, Josh, what have you been up to?
Great. All things Infinity. Just I've played all of the new missions with the exception of last launch, but I have the claim to fame of helping Dante test his version of that when he was writing it for the Loss of Lieutenant custom mission challenge. So
Yeah.
will allow me to that little piece of fame. I played So I've played Extraction, I've played B-Pong, and I think that's it. Extraction and B-Pong are the only two new missions, apart from last launch. Extraction, such a difficult mission, very difficult to score high on, but
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Still fun
when
during the thing.
We get to it.
Yeah, and I've also been playing some reinforcements games, which is something that's good, especially considering it's still up in the air if CanCon is going to be reinforcements or not, and I can be totally wrong about that when this goes to air.
I think the vote is still open, but yeah, by the time we go to publish this, it might be closed.
Yeah,
it might be closed. So at the time of recording, it's still up in the air whether CanCon's going to be reinforcements or not. So I've been testing some reinforcements to see if I like it. I do like the mission. I do like the game mode. I do like the format. Feels like some factions are better than others. Well, at least just a little bit more suited to it than others. I much prefer running Ariadna through the lenses of Caledonia than over Vanilla Combined. And there's some thoughts from Dante about Pano and Nomads in there as well.
I think as far as reinforcements goes, the factions that the reinforcements sort of fill a hole that they may not have been able to fill, with just like their basic sort of things, probably feels better than you said combined army have pretty much everything. So really the reinforcements adds at most some forward deploying specialist or something like that.
I think I'd prefer to run like a sectorial and reinforcements, but I don't know. I've still got to do a bit more testing. But other than that, I'm just sort of continuing being on my villain arc and playing some vanilla combined. But I'm trying to test out some of the more or the less mainstream profiles, I should say.
You're not playing the villain right now.
Yeah, I am.
No, ITS 15.
Oh,
no, we got to see Spiral. You have to play Spiral, yeah.
I have to play Spiral Core now, yeah.
Combined is totally not the villain right now.
Yeah.
Everyone's on equal political footing.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm testing some of the less mainstream profiles out. For example, the Skiavoros. He's a wonderful little egg, and I picked up an actual model. And so I've been powering around with that guy.
Yeah, the old school model where he's got he's got the old predator skull and spine in one of his hands.
That's the one.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a joy to paint.
Yeah, Nick, what have you been up to?
Well, we had the 400-point tournament, and I actually ran assassins for that. Two Sonic butts. Beautiful. Had a game into JSA and set them all up, all four decoy and rule tokens up in a tower, and he picked the wrong two and had an Oyoroi deployed in sight of both rule Sonic butts.
I'm assuming considering you mentioned the Oyoroi, you took the new Neocinetics for your back.
No, Neurosynetics AP Spitfire.
Oh yeah, that's good enough.
But yes, the Oyoroi was lost the second order on his first turn, and he went first.
They're, I don't know if I don't know if I want to say they're deceptively hard to get rid of, because I think people have realized now that they're very difficult to get rid of. But
yes.
yeah, they are. Yeah. They can be a nightmare if you're not essentially, it's sort of like taking out a TR bot, except that it can fuck up twice. And it's really hard to make it do it because it's 4 armor.
Yes. So yeah, that was a fun tournament. The Biotech 4 mission ended with 4 models on the table between myself and my opponent.
That was me.
Yes. Yes, we had a lovely game there.
We didn't cover the 400 tournament, did we?
I don't think we did.
No,
we did a little bit
between last episode and this one, I believe.
Well, I suppose just quickly then, we obviously heard a little bit about Nick's experience. Josh, what was your experience running 400?
400-point limited session. I took an avatar and went brr. One of my lists was Avatar and Mathematic. The other one was an Avatar Sphinx, and they were both great lists. And I very much enjoyed running the Avatar, but I never will run it in a 300-point game.
You don't want to run an Avatar in a 300-point game.
No, I just said the. Yeah, it's too expensive, too spenny. It's too spenny for me. Yeah, I mean, 126 points is a lot.
Yeah, it is. It pretty much forms the center of a 300-point list. 400 points, it's big, but it's not the entire list.
You put a lot of support into a 400-point limited insertion list that you just can't afford to have in a 300-point list. And there are just so many things that can take out an avatar now fairly easily. And, I've spent the last year playing the one of the factions that can do it fairly easily, and I'm very conscious of how a Shinobu can just come in and monofilament an avatar and then ruin my entire day because 174 points and 4 SWC after an avatar is dead. You just can't finish a game with that. Very difficult to finish a game with that. Much prefer to take some more mid-rangey peak profiles in vanilla combined, but I'm still testing out some.
Yeah. Did you have any other bits and games or anything you wanted to talk about, Nick?
On that, I know I said I was going to try to be going into Assassins for a while, and then immediately after the tournament got distracted by QK. And so I've been running a
because they get an extra Harris now, don't they?
Yes, they got an extra Harris, so I've been running a triple Harris. Fantastic. Well, 2 Harrys and a core of 3.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Play some Spiral Core. It's the same thing.
Yeah, except for Spiral Core don't have Azraels.
Oh well, they've got what are they called?
Trials?
Big boys.
Yes.
You're thinking of the Kilsans.
Kilsans, that's right.
Yeah. Which I read the lore. I didn't realize that they technically walk around like looking normal, and when combat starts, it's almost the same as 40k combat drugs. They inject their symbio armor with a bunch of combat drugs, and then they just grow to the size of like the S5.
That's cool. Yeah. That's cool because the S5 has 2 wounds and then it drops down to an S2 with 1 wound after.
Yeah, that's your typical Toha, the Toha heavy infantry wound arrangement. Like the Ekdros is the same thing. It's 2 wounds and then another wound. It drops down to smaller.
Yes. Well, the
Mm.
Actros is just an S1 and S2, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's the keel sand drops in size, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well,
just keep distracting from
yeah.
Nick's
Yeah.
excellent QK lists.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did run into a slight problem with them because last Friday for the public holiday, was down at the shop and had someone come in like, new player, awesome. Like, cool. I was gonna do a reinforcements game, but went, okay, cool. I'll help the new player. We'll play a nice 300-point game. Found out it's his second 300-point game and looked at my bag and went, I have a QK list that's running double Azraels, or I have a assassin list. So I guess you get to learn what Fidesz are.
Yeah.
Oh no!
But
Well,
thankfully
it's
he was running
important.
Rama, so he had a fair idea of what to expect from assassins.
Oh, is this down in Geelong?
Yeah.
Yeah. They've got a couple of new players, which is good because they were a little bit of a dead scene.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
they've
it's nice because
revived
I've
them a
been
little bit.
helping him in one of the chats for a while with lists, and now I finally get to meet him and play against one of the lists that I helped him write.
Yeah, that's Ben. I've run a
Yeah.
couple of
Yeah.
run a couple. I ran his intro game, which is really cool.
Yeah. Awesome. How about you, Jacob?
I'll quickly go over 400-point tournament just to say that I finally did a pseudo bucket list thing I've been wanting to do. So the 400-point tournament used to be called Elite Command
ECM.
Melbourne. Same sort of thing, 400 points, limited insertion. And every single time I went to play it, I thought of playing Steel Phalanx, but I chickened out because Steel Phalanx didn't have tags, and I didn't want to be a player without the tags. Well, this tournament, I manned up and actually ran Steel Phalanx. Didn't take Agamemnon.
Perfect opportunity.
Well, I think Agamemnon get his ass handed to him in that sort of those sort of games. And yeah, it was good fun to just sort of apply DA and explosive weapons to absolutely everything, and frustrate all of my opponents by with mimetism -6. I found it easier to when I was explaining my army, if someone didn't really know what Steel Phalanx was, it said assume everything essentially is a Myrmidon, so mimetism -6 with this and that, and I'll tell you the ones that don't.
That's a pretty good way to start it.
Yeah. It's good. I came second. And there was I came second. It was a lot of fun, and I'm glad that I took that list. Unfortunately, as much as I wanted to, I took Achilles. Doesn't really matter which version of Achilles I took, but I did take the lighter, the version 1, because oh my god, just Phoenix does so much work, and Achilles just has such a hard time fitting into like the situation.
Just jam him in. That's what I did when I played vanilla. Just jam Achilles in, and it's good fun. You'll have fun every time. You might lose, but you'll have fun doing it.
Yeah. Again, I think I got a bit of PTSD when I was playing. Was it you, Josh, or Tristan, who hacked my? I was playing 012. It would have been Tristan. Hacked my Achilles and shut with like 2 crits and shut him down. I'm like,
oh dear.
But yeah. So I played B-Pong with Kyle from Whip 12, but that was a couple of weeks ago. We did talk about it. I played a couple of games of Extraction. Evacuation, which is great to get that sort of experience. First game, I got locked down by really good placement of Beast Hunter and a core of Frontovic snipers. So that was really frustrating, but there was kudos to my opponent because he just did a good job of positioning them. Then I had another game against JSA and had a good situation where at somewhere during his turn, I had a Custodia within 8 of his Oyaroi, and managed to total control it in his turn.
I remember hearing that from the other room.
Yeah. So I got to do a couple of fun things of getting rid of crazy koalas and using his Oyaroi to get rid of crazy koalas, as well as to block line of sight. 'Cause I needed a piece to come around a corner and not get shot at because it was only on one wound. So I was like, oh, I just put the Oyoroi in the way so you can't shoot at that.
Did you then also empty out the rest of its crazy koalas?
Well, I only had one left, and
Okay.
I threw it at the Ryukin, which I do think it actually ended up dying to the crazy koala. But yeah, that's the most of my games that I've been having.
Nice.
Okay, so let's just quickly do our announcements, our challenges and event announcements. Starting off with our challenge ones. So our monthly challenge or changing,
Monthly at this point.
So changing to
Now
changing
now a quarterly month.
yeah, changing our monthly challenge has been delayed a little bit. We had the idea of the next challenge being playing the resilience operations. However, at the moment, nobody has access to the cards, so we can't really do that. So we're going to extend the play and submit a list of reinforcement battles for another month, and then hopefully by the end of October, the cards will come out. People have a chance to buy them, and so that November will be play resilience operations. Right, so again, for this month, have a game of a reinforcement game. Submit your battle report to lostlieutenant@gmail.com, and a random winner will be chosen from the submissions to win a blister of their choice from Toy Soldiers Imports.
And if you happen to get your new classified and resilience decks early, you could record your game and save that for November's challenge.
I mean, just don't date it. We won't know the difference.
Yeah.
Again, another extension of our quarter 3 challenge is now going to be also our quarter 4 challenge, which is just to provide us with some of your creative writing works in the form of a narrative story based in the Infinity Universe. So the Infinity Universe is a rich and diverse universe, right, with a lot of stories to tell. Maybe you've had some sort of headcanon that you've been wanting to put pen to paper about for a while, or maybe you've in your army you've had this unit that's always stood out, always performed well, and you want to honor their performance with a short story. Well, now's your chance to express yourself, and we're giving you another couple of months to get those stories in. So please submit your short stories to lostlieutenant@gmail.com. Try and keep them to no more than 2,000 words. At the end of this challenge, we will pick a random winner will be chosen to get a box of their choice from Toy Soldiers Imports, and we will also pick our favorites to get a bit of a white noise treatment, and we'll read them out in the pod. And that's it for our challenges.
Trent says he'll only submit one if the LOL crew narrate it with proper voice acting. I think we can make that happen.
We've got a fair number of voices.
Yeah. We'll
Provided there's I want like a gruff sergeant for for Kevin to narrate.
I was gonna say, yeah, just somehow hamstring in a Scottish person, and we'll make him ham it up. Put in a bunch of Scottish people, and we'll see if we can get like Kev's family to read it. That'd be fucking funny. Okay, let's get on to our events. Nick, did you just want to talk about the Sydney crew?
Yeah, I can go through the events. So City Crew, congratulations to the Sydney Infinity crew on successfully launching the regular games day at Combat Company. Next one is Saturday the 7th, so should be end of the week, and hopefully this will be out in time for that. Can find out more about that on the Combat Company's Facebook page for their event details. Next up, we have the store championships for Infinity at Throw the Dice down in Geelong, Victoria. It's going to be on the 18th of November. 300 points, 3 rounds with Supremacy, Firefight, and Highly Classified. Has an interesting painting requirement. all lieutenants must be fully painted and based, which will go along interestingly with firefight.
Well, I
And
mean, just
you want to kill lieutenants, but it's not technically open information who they are.
fully paint and base your entire army, and
Yeah,
no
or
one will know.
it's a subtle way to encourage that. Yes.
the other suggestion that I've heard being floated around was just have a camo lieutenant.
Yes. And never decamo them.
Oh, look, I said my lieutenant is a Dao Ying. It just sits in my DC, does nothing. I might be
My-
running a mentor lieutenant.
My favorite thing for that would be to 3D print off a camo token and then not paint it.
Yeah, well, it's camo.
Wonder how that works with a hidden deploy lieutenant if you just don't reveal it and then go into lost lieutenant so you can transfer it.
How? I mean, that was your lieutenant in the
How,
army
how
list.
could we get around these painting requirements?
Yeah, man. So painting requirements. We're not
You've
used
got,
to
yeah,
it.
you've got
Okay.
a month and a half to paint it, and we're like, oh, how can we not do
Yeah.
that?
So, winner gets to go up on the Throw the Dice Hall of Fame wall. Sign up and details can be found on the Throw the Dice Facebook page.
Awesome.
It's good to see these guys get back into some Infinity events because
Yes. Yeah.
they hadn't for a while.
Mm.
Once
Yeah.
again,
I was down there on Friday and had, I want to say, 6 people throughout the day.
nice. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, and what's really good about this is we're sort of getting to the point where we've got a regular Infinity place on each sort of like the north of Melbourne, east of Melbourne, and now with Geelong, west of Melbourne.
Mhm.
And then I don't know if someone wants to host one in a boat in the bay, you can have south of Melbourne.
Disgusting. Actually, sounds like a lot of fun. Should do that.
Let's see. We got CanCon coming up next January, so CanCon 2024. Tickets are live, so head over to their website and pick up tickets if you're interested in going.
There are only 30 places, so if we want more places assigned to CanCon, assigned to Infinity for CanCon, buy your tickets now, so we can,
Yes.
so that Melbourne doesn't field half the tournament again.
Yeah. And that Infinity doesn't get swallowed up by Age of Sigma.
Yes.
It's already doing that.
Yeah, it's inevitable. Should also point out that as of recording, there is a poll up on the Facebook page for CanCon. I think both about the missions and reinforcements.
That's a reinforcement.
I think it's just reinforcements right now of trying to test the waters and seeing not just should we have it or not, but what the community feelings are. So kind of like if we have reinforcements, does that decrease the chance that you'll come? If we don't have reinforcements, will that decrease the chance you'll come? Yeah. So yeah, you can find that on their Facebook page.
The poll's sitting firmly in don't care, so we'll see what happens with that.
I mean, look,
guess.
if they do it, it's going to force me to actually play reinforcements. Because even if I don't go, nobody's going to want to play non-reinforcements because they'd be practicing for CanCon.
Well,
Also have the Stone Monkey Monthly coming up for our Darwin folks, 28th of October.
So we just
for the monthly event at. Sorry.
Oh no, don't worry about it. I don't know what I'm talking
about. For another monthly event at Stone Monkey, 350 points with B-Pong and Last Launch as the mission lineup. Further details can be found on Stone Monkey's Facebook page.
Is that 350 points not reinforcements?
No, it's reinforcements.
Okay.
Sorry,
I was about to say that's an interesting like halfway sort of.
Not that it matters now. We've already read the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, correcting the show notes now will not make a difference.
Let's do it now. Yeah.
Yeah. So just quickly, this is obviously part of what we really like to do with the show is sort of give a community shout out to any events going around all of Australia. So if you do have any events that you want to promote and you want us to give them a shout out, so long as it's in a timely manner, just let us know via lostlieutenant@gmail.com or however you know how to get in contact with any of the hosts.
Or the Discord, or the Facebook.
Discord, Facebook messages. We've got them all. And we'll
Harrier Pigeon.
Yeah, I'd just show up randomly at 12 o'clock at night and tell us about it.
I
Maybe-
frequent St Kilda Beach, so just a message in a bottle will get me.
Yeah,
Um,
tranquilize us, tie us in onto a chair, and be like, "This is the event."
Though if you do that, give us a piece of paper and a pen to write it down.
Yeah.
Because we might forget it with the tranquilizer.
Oh yeah, of course. And Trent says OnlyFans. Obviously, the Loss of Lieutenant OnlyFans page.
Yeah.
You can find us there. We do respond to every message.
Josh, did you just want to do a quick Patreon?
Yeah. So guys, sort of just introducing Nick and myself as some new regular hosts. And let's change things up by plugging our Patreon. So everyone, we'd love for everybody to join our chain of command, or COX, which is our the name of our patrons. Patreon.com/Loss of Lieutenant. It is $3 a month. You get exclusive access to our patron Discord, where you can chat to us. You get to sit in on the live shows. We've got a couple of lovely patrons sitting in with us on this one today. And we'll be looking at doing some exclusive Patreon giveaways and some Patreon exclusive content coming up pretty soon, hopefully.
So we often get things cover spelling and that sort of thing, and as a thank you to our patrons, we like to give back. So we did it last time with we got the ITS 14 like special edition pack or exclusive edition pack. Can't remember exactly what its title was. And so we got a pro painted. We got the Marut and the Aya pro painted, and given those out. And so yeah, we're looking forward to doing a little bit more on those, and that's exclusive to our patrons. And I should also point out that if you are a patron for longer, we do you do have a better chance of winning those giveaways.
Yep. All
All
right,
right.
should we crack into this?
And with that,
the
Get to the
meat of
topic
the
at hand.
episode?
did we want to go?
Was that a
over any
record
drinks?
time of getting through the introduction?
Yeah, I think so.
It was not just an introduction; it was also a tournament review.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think the problem is that all of our game talk has to be cut short because it's going to come up in the next part.
we're doing first, second, third impressions.
Yeah. Did we want to take a quick break, grab refresh drinks, and then get back?
Yep.
Yes.
That's good.
Yeah. All right. Let's do that. Welcome back from our break, guys. So we're getting into our main segment today, which is covering our first and second impressions of ITS 15. So there's been a decent amount of changes. I think we can all agree with that. I'll quickly go over and sort of the summary of changes from ITS 14 to 15 in like the more broader things. So stuff that's disappeared and stuff that's been added. Takemotos, which was anything with a repeater and any rem with repeater and a forward observer, got tactical awareness as well as marksmanship. That's gone now. We haven't seen that yet integrated in any way into their profile like it was for the bikes. But I think we all kind of really like that rule. You know, I found I really enjoyed it.
I liked it for the season. I thought it was a good season rule. I wouldn't mind seeing triangulated fire become marksmanship on them. But I think the tactical awareness was a fun seasonal rule, and now we'll move on to different things.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was good for the season. I think the problem is that you saw too many of those rems like being almost spammed out, especially in Hakazlam, because they had probably one of the best ones in the Rafik. But I think and we've discussed this before. Oh, we've discussed this, that maybe something from the Takamotos can come out. I'm thinking maybe the Takaware would be kind of cool for them, but who knows. As well
And it's
as
perfectly good as a seasonal rule. It doesn't need to be added in any way, shape, or form.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
The
I don't think it fundamentally changed the way that they were played. Unlike the bike rule from season 13, that changed how bikes were played. And it turns out the way that they were played in season 13 was better, so they implemented it later.
yeah, because they felt like less of a throwaway piece.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But you could also anything that provides more choice is always a good thing.
Mm.
Having a bit of dynamics in
Yeah.
there for players to sort of exert their own agency on the list, aside from what troopers they put in there, that can just happen from game to game. I think is just an excellent addition to the game. It adds a little bit more thinking. Whereas Takamoto's really didn't. You took one, they were great, fantastic.
Yeah.
Let's move on to something different.
Yeah, it probably did the opposite. Or like when you're talking about extra choice, it probably almost narrowed people's focus to taking the Ford Observer bots.
But it means that people took them more, which means that they probably are used to the skill set of a forward observer remote more now. And so that's why I kind of disagree with Nick in regards to replacing triangulated fire with marksmanship. I saw some amazing uses of triangulated fire that you would never see in a regular game normally, because those sort of specialist bots aren't taken as often.
Yeah.
And triangulated fire is such a useful skill in really, really niche situations. So I think, having that relates to my earlier point about the bikes, but having a little bit more agency in the game. Removing a skill like triangular fire just means that you have one less option to take care of something. And so I think that I would just keep them as they are. No changes needed. It was great for a season. Let's move on to another season.
One of the best uses I actually did, I think, is probably the best use for triangular fire, firing into combat. Especially with things with, like, if you're firing into combat against the steel phalanx model, you're gonna need that triangulated fire, because if not, you're firing at -12, and that's not fun.
Yeah. Same with, like, people used it against me when Shinobi was in against with something. So it's really good skill.
And so as far as things that I think have disappeared from the other disappeared, I don't think there's anything else that's really been gotten rid of. The one thing we did see kind of added, kind of not, is that the extra motorized bounty hunter from, I suppose, season 13, but also the CSU and the Bashi Bazook.
You can just take any list.
Yeah. Yep. Well, these have been added as, like, tournament extras now.
Yeah.
So
for any given tournament,
yeah,
or any mission in a tournament, they can say everyone gets a CSU or everyone gets a Bashi or a Pike.
But I think they changed the rule about how it relates to your combat group and points and stuff like that, right?
I don't remember that, but they're also now down to one profile.
Yeah, they all have a boarding shotgun.
Yeah. Which is fine. I mean, I don't know about you, but I never found the CSU particularly impactful. The Bashi could come in clutch.
I loved CSUs. Rolling an 8-4 on Metacam and then running up and, grabbing a supply box and running back to my DZ with CSUs was just amazing.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I suppose for the missions that I did use, I got unlucky. I think I only ever roll. I think maybe I did roll, which is technically good, but it just didn't really show up. I think I got the NWY one at one point.
Yeah, I mean, just a suppressive breaker combi rifle is always useful too. So, they had the uses.
I found the Bashi was great because you would drop it as your last order to just be an ARO piece, like, down the line, and just to annoy your opponent.
I deployed it, a bunch of them, as, like, multiple Atalantas and lots of I did lots of stuff with the Bashi Bazooka. It was lots of fun.
The other thing, this is one of the things where I should have used the Bashi and I didn't, which I was playing Kev. I completely forgot that I had the damn thing. But I could have dropped it to. We had this Touareg that if it did a long skill climb down a wall, would have got obliterated by Kusanagi. So we had to walk the other way. And I realized that I could have dropped a Bashi to just look at that Touareg for the entire way that it was running, instead of having like this blind spot. But yeah, so I found the Bashi to be really impactful. I guess I got unlucky with the CSU. I never rolled anything that made it have a huge impact.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. So it was a good piece.
But we'll go over now the new extras that have been added. And one of I'm gonna start with the smaller one that I think, and then we'll go to the really big one. So they've added what's called border skirmishes. The idea of this extra for ITS is that if you have an exclusion zone in your mission, you are allowed to once per game deploy a troop with aerial deployment on the edge of that deployment zone without having to roll, which is pretty huge.
So it was once per game, an AD troop can land in an exclusion zone. Combat drop can do it without a roll, but only onto an edge of onto an exclusion zone. So parachuters can deploy once per game, can deploy as normal in an exclusion zone, as in coming in on the side. Whereas a combat jump troop can come in on any of the 4 edges of the exclusion zone,
which is
it adds an interesting little twist to exclusion zones where they're not all bad. There is a glimmer of tactical advantage to them.
Yeah, it makes extraction a little bit easier if you've got a specialist combat jump trooper that can just jump in and grab a thing.
I suppose the only pushback I'll give to border skirmishes is that again, I mean, Josh, as a JSA player, if you're playing JSA this tournament, you're never going to use it.
Well, you got the ITS Bashi Bazooka that you can just chuck in.
Okay, so... yeah, if the stars align, I suppose. But there are some factions like the Kunin who only really have the Meteor. Obviously, a lot of the Ariadnas don't have. I suppose they do have the parachute.
There's quite a few sectorals that don't have combat drop in them.
Yeah.
So you're right. It does give a bit of an advantage to vanillas and the sectorals who have not just combat drop but also good specialist combat drop.
Yeah. So I'm thinking. My thinking is like the Lu Jing, the IA drop troop, because I think it has a specialist profile and it's 6'2". I might be wrong with its movement. But even the
explodey one.
Yeah. Even the I know it's only parachutist, but the what's
they
it
do have a
called?
specialist profile.
Yeah,
and
I think they've got a hacker. Even the Bukta, I know I know it's only parachutist, but it's quick, mimetism, Thingo visor. So there are some great ones where I can really see some armies taking advantage of the border skirmisher extra. Yeah, but the one that we've been seeing a lot, at least I have, is the new extra O12 Prestige. So this is an extra where you simply, like converting in a regular order, you simply turn a command token once per turn into a regular order. They can be
brand new regular order.
Yeah, they can be spent as per usual. I'll just get it out of the way and I'll throw it to you guys. I've played a number of ITF 15 games, like 5 or so, and I don't think I have played a single game where, at the very least, I haven't done this, right, or that my opponent hasn't done this.
I have used it in every game I've played since ITS 15 came out.
Yeah. I've almost used it in every round of every game I've played since ITS 15 have come out. So, like, that's a few. Like, I think I must have used it 15 times, which is across 5 games, 3 rounds per game. Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah, it really feels like the missing use for spending a command token.
Yeah.
Now, basically, it regardless of your list, if you finish the game with command tokens, it's because you chose to finish the game with command tokens. You were holding them for a specific reason,
Yeah.
not because you didn't have anything to do with them.
Yeah. And it does make for an interesting choice when you get to like turn 2 or turn 3,
Yes.
when you're like, I could use a coordinator order now, then I won't be able to do O12 prestige like turn 3 or something like that.
Yeah.
A few of the missions that are a little bit more order intensive give you an extra command token now as well. So with some lieutenants, you're having 6 command tokens, which is pretty fun.
Yeah. Which means, like, if you've got plans that need command tokens, let's say, to convert irregulars, and you got that O12 prestige, if you're running one of those extra command token commanders, that's gonna be really awesome for you, because you can just put 3 aside and say, I'm going to use 3 for Thingo, and then I'm going to put the other 3 aside for just O12 prestige.
Yeah.
It's changed how I write lists, because previously I would like, if I'm taking a Gulan Lieutenant, I would take the 11-point Gulan Lieutenant, and if I had 4 points, I would upgrade him to the +1 command token.
Awesome.
Now I take the 15-point +1 command token, and if I run out of points, I consider downgrading him to the 11-point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it's a big deal.
I didn't think they could make TAC officers any better, but they've got a +1 command token profile.
They do. Bloody Toha, how dare they be good still.
One of the best profiles, I'm going to say, in Toha, possibly in the game, is now even better. So
Avatar comes with a cool extra one as well.
Yeah, but the Avatar has everything. If you mention something in the game other than the ability to go prone,
it doesn't have remote presence.
It doesn't. It is a good question though, and it's one that I asked when I first saw this: is how is this going to play with maybe armies that like converting irregular orders? Do you reckon now it's going to be a case of you don't convert those orders, the irregular troops just use their order, and you just use O12 prestige instead? Because I suppose technically then you get more orders, or what?
Yes. In the games I've played with my irregulars, first go-to is O12 prestige, and then if I need yet another order, convert one, which I have done in a few games, but most times I find that I actually get to do small stuff with the irregulars. So I had a game where my war core spent his own order, I think, at least 2 turns of the game, and it was just readjusting his position, so he was staring down a different alleyway with his flashballs.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have been able to do that if I was converting his order instead of using O12 Prestige.
Like the Takimoto's rule, I think that you're going to start finding people start to use these pieces that they might not have used before. They might have included them in lists, like a Daylami goes in every Haggis list, basically, or multiple Daylami. But now you actually have to use them, because their orders have to be spent on themselves. You know, you can always not spend the irregular order, which is always a choice that you can have. And you don't have to spend the irregular order. But I think people are going to find different uses for a lot of these different profiles, which is exciting.
Yes.
Very exciting.
Yeah, I really hope that becomes a part of the regular or N4 rule set.
I agree entirely. I think it's one of those things that
like
changes.
It's been missing.
Yeah,
it just changes the way the game's played, and it needs to be added in. But you know, that's speculation for a year's time. So
I hope that it is. It's like it already, like within just a few weeks, this feels like it's a part of the game that was missing.
Yeah, it could just be like a literal change to N4 rule set, where just a new thing just called Prestige appears as part of the tactical uses.
Yeah, it's an excellent rule. I think the other addition to ITS 15, which is I think a much welcome sight considering the the slack that some overseas tournaments gets from the Australian community regarding their tables,
Yeah.
is these new terrain layout thematic tables and density of terrain examples in the actual ITS document, where previously they hadn't really put in anything to do with how to set up a table apart from their like prescribed layouts in the starter books. But yeah, having these is awesome. I think it's great. As a soon to be tournament organizer, touch nose, touch wood. I think it's an excellent thing to have there. What do you guys think?
I think it's good because it just standardizes and gives a starting point. So people can, if they want to say this is a lighter terrain tournament or a lighter terrain meta or a heavier terrain meta, they have a standard to which they can compare it.
It's good.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even, it is like there's not really a standard being set or a prescription being set. You can have your infinity tables as sparse as you like. It doesn't really matter.
Yes.
But they've given some good examples, and the examples of a couple of table layouts that they've put in there, they lean towards the less dense that what I would see in
For a
Melbourne.
Melbourne player, yeah, these
For a
are
Melbourne player,
these are
they're
kind
not.
of sparse tables.
They are, and I think they're kind of out of proportion because they're Corvus Belly buildings and supposed to be on a 4x4 table. I just don't think they're quite in proportion.
Yeah.
No, but it gives a pretty good idea of density.
It does. It does.
And I like
this could be a
that.
Sydney table.
I also think that in those particular pictures, they're just sort of missing like the scatter. They've just got sort of the big pieces that come in their sets.
Yeah.
But I think what's more like the pictures are useful, sure, but I think what's better is the little couple of paragraphs they give actually about the terrain layout, the idea of checking line of sights down a side, or make sure that you don't have a terrain where a drop troop can just like shoot down the entire way. I know personally when I help put tables together, I'm always thinking, okay, if a drop troop drops down, is there a corner that someone can hide in and not necessarily be seen? I remember when I first started playing, I had a friend who really liked these thematic tables, but he kept making it so that one side could have like a sniper looking in like half of his DZ. As well as I think one of the big things they say there is just make sure that somebody can't just look from one end to the other down a side. Make sure that each side has some sort of block at some point, so that so you don't have a missile launcher or whatever just take up the entire side and then that's it.
Yeah, and actually looking at those pictures, on each of the boards, at least 3 sides on each board has a piece of terrain touching the board edge to block line of sight down the edge. I also like that one of the boards is set up at a 45 and the other one set up at a 90.
Good point, actually.
To show that you can have different orientations. You don't have to just block it up. It's also nice that they make the note that it's okay and probably should be encouraged to have asymmetric tables, because that way picking a side is actually a meaningful choice.
Yeah. I'm gonna say that they've been listening to enough Australian podcasts and Affinity players to look at it and go, oh, that's how a train should be put together, because I can't tell you how many full-on Infinity discussions happen in the just Australia-wide meta that are just about a picture of terrain, like you said, a picture of the American terrain. I remember, I think one of the big tournaments that happened a while ago, and it was terrain. I don't think there was any terrain that you would want to walk on top of, and nowhere to hide a tag, and it was sparse as hell. And everyone in Australia is like, "This is a major tournament. What is this table?"
Yeah, after most major tournaments in other countries, the pictures of the tables show up in some of our chats, and then they immediately get marked up
Yeah,
as to like, here's fire lanes and here's fire. And what if we took this and moved it over here? It looks like this
we should do that one day.
sports type of
we should
commentating.
we should get them and mark them like teachers with like the red pen and be like too open, too low, not enough stuff in the DZ, and give them like a grade.
I'm glad that Nick put it eloquently and politely, because I was just going to say they get lambasted, like they just get absolutely punished, because we don't mince words in the Australian community, and yeah, some of those tables have shocked some people, I think. Which is they're just used to what they're used to.
Yeah. So moving on from extras, we'll take a look at sort of the more mission rule extras, the mission specific rules. I'm just going to name them quickly, and we'll obviously go back and talk about them. We have addition of what's called quantum anomaly zones. We have quantum anomaly creatures. We have the HasOps, and we have the joint command. Where do we want to start? Do we want to start with the little ones and get into the two big ones?
Oh, sure. I can do Hazmat Ops right now. It's identical to Master Breacher. They changed the name.
That's not true.
Moving on. It's joint command. Some of the missions, everyone gets a bonus command token. It's great.
Yeah, so obviously leaning into those missions to have even more O12 prestige sort of considered in it. Yeah. So let's start with the quantum anomaly zones.
Yep.
So anyone who played ITS 14, these are very similar in function, I suppose, to only in function,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
To the decompression zones. They still act as a saturation zone. They still are difficult terrain zones. The two big changes are, one, each player only gets to put down one of the zones.
Yep.
It's still put down the exact same way. Whoever kept deployment, so the person who's deploying second, I think second.
You player who kept deployment.
So is that deploying first?
Deploys first. Yeah,
sorry.
Player who kept deployment deploys it first.
Yeah, so the person who deploys first puts his down first. Person who deploys second puts theirs down second. The other big change to it is if you start an order inside of these zones, you take a damage 10 hit on your BTS. Now, we had an interview with Helios, who was saying the reason that they did this, and I think it's like a very justified reason, is to stop people using these as like a speed boost pad from Mario Kart for things with total terrain. Because there were a bunch of profiles. I think like Shinobu, I think, is one of them who has.
Shinobu love the decompression zone.
Yeah, you just pop them in the decompression zone, and suddenly she's like, what, 5-4?
5-4, yeah.
Yeah, or you put, I think. I mean, one of the examples that I always thought was incredible was if you made your Master Breacher an Asawira, a 7-2 Asawira is fucking terrifying.
Yeah, 7-4 Wallace was always a good one.
Yeah,
as a Master Breacher.
Yep, I've run a 7-4. I'm blanking on his name.
Fiddler.
No,
I've run a 7-4 Miyamata Musashi. Like
Draws love the shit out of them.
Yeah, you could do a lot with. They still love them because they're BTS out the wazoo, aren't they? The BTS 6.
Yeah, but it's a risk now.
Mystery. Tariq Mystery. 7-4.
Oh, Tariq, right? Yeah, of course.
Sorry, who was it?
Oh,
Tariq.
7-4 Tariq Mystery.
Yeah. So that's the reason that they've done it. I think that they're acting how they're supposed to, like they were designed to be in 14, which is they are true like movement blockers now.
Yes.
Like only the fastest, most able things are getting through these things. What do you guys think?
I like that it is now damaging, which, like I said, stops people from just using it as a speed boost. One, because now it seems like the choice will be more meaningful, and with 2 per player, a lot of times we ran out of places to put them, and that led to, or like, the fact that we were running two armies that really didn't have terrain skills that matched the season, and just kind of went, oh look, we forgot to put them down, I guess we'll just keep going. This seems like it will be more meaningful, people will want to use it, but not feel like it's going to crowd out the table.
I think people, and the term is bandied around a lot in our community of the gentleman's agreement.
Yes.
People were just flat out ignoring the rule.
The decompression ones.
The decompression zones,
Yeah.
and the blizzard zones in the previous season before that, like whatever flavor these saturation zones come in, people were just flat out ignoring them. Which is like, look, that's always an option. You can do it, but you're playing in a tournament setting because you're playing the Infinity tournament system. And while yes, this is the main way that people play Infinity, even in casual games, you are playing. If you're in a tournament, you are playing the Infinity tournament system. The missions have been designed this way for a reason, and I would err away from telling people that they should just ignore this rule completely. Especially now, I think that this, creates a meaningful impact.
Yeah.
Around the game.
I think these are so like the sort of, I suppose, the idea of like for like capture and protect, putting it in front of your flag, your beacon, right, now has like like instead of technically potentially helping your opponent, it's now that sort of choice, especially if you've got like that one wound really fast specialist. Now there's a risk, even if, like, let's say they're BTS 9, you roll that one, your interventor just died. And so, yeah, I think this is a good change from the decompression zones. I would probably say now, unless we legitimately forget it and it's too late to really go back, I'd always use this one, because while the decompression zones were another 3 minutes of trying to find out where the hell you could put the damn things, and this is put down one template, it can block something off, it can help you protect whatever. I think this is what decompression zones were meant to be, and I think this is right. Well done, CB.
Yeah, like with decompression, I've had games of capture and protect where, like, in a tournament, and when it came to be my turn to put mine down, I put them all on the board edge off to the side, and my opponent looked a little confused. I just explained, like, I don't have terrain skills, you do. Like, I will be hurting myself if I put this in front of me. Like, I will be giving you a benefit and hindering myself, so it's going to go off to a corner where it's least likely to come up.
The only other thing that sort of came up with decompression zones, you talking about how you ran out of places. It also sort of on the flip side, it turned out you would look around the board, spend 5 minutes trying to find out, and it turned out there was literally 4 places you could put it, and then that was it. Like, even if you wanted to not put it there, other than, because I don't think you could technically stack them on top of each other. Maybe you could.
I don't think there was anything that prevented it.
You could in decompression. You cannot with quantum anomaly zones. There's a piece of rules tech that specifically states that they cannot overlap.
Okay. So yeah, with the decompression, if you wanted to spread them out so they weren't on top of each other, you found out, I can actually only put these on 4 places on the entire board. So yeah.
It's a cool rule. Play it, guys. See what happens.
Yes.
Who wants to introduce the next one with its colloquial name?
Okay.
Quasi creature.
Quasi creatures.
Josh didn't even give an option. He's like, no, I'm saying it. Yeah. So the quantum anomaly zone creatures, better known as the quasi creatures.
Put the machine of Holt saying quasi cupcakes. Perfect. Done. Quasi creature.
They are similar to the defensive turret, because there is the defensive turret that's been removed, hasn't it?
No, it hasn't been removed.
It's still there. It's not as prevalent because some of the missions that it was in got removed.
Yeah. So this is very similar to the turret. It's a little animal S1 marker
It's a Taker creature.
that you put on the field. It then AROs with a burst 3, CC 11,
Yep.
damage 11, or fizz
Damage
11,
13.
damage
13.
13. Sorry, my bad. Yeah,
Same as
damage.
the copy rifle.
Yeah, so damage 13, guard, I suppose, guard CC attack. So
Guard, no line of fire.
yeah. So that's a big thing. It is a CC attack, right? It's so if you can CC it back if you get too close to it. And of
It
course,
is
it attacks
a
you.
melee turret.
Yeah, and so
There's
it attacks you through walls.
Yep.
The rules text around it is before the deployment phase, each player must place a quasi creature a minimum of 4 inches outside the enemy deployment zone. The player that kept the deployment is the first one to place their quasi creature. Each quasi creature is fixed in place and cannot move. They must be represented by a player A or player B token, or by a model or piece of scenery with the same silhouette value, such as Sassor creatures from Tag Raid or the Taker creatures. Crazy creatures are deployable weapons, reacting with a CC attack to any order declared or performed by an active enemy model, but not markers within the zone of control. The crazy creature's guard special skill does not require line of fire, but the CC attack will become idle if the path from the crazy creature to the enemy model is blocked. For example, by an impassable obstacle, a wall of infinite height, a closed door, a sealed room, etc., or a gap too small for the silhouette template of the crazy creature to pass through. The CC attack arrows of the crazy creatures have a burst of 3.
Oh, so it's almost like a strange perimeter weapon.
It's like a boosting burst 3 thing.
Okay. Yeah, it's like it throws out 3 crazy koala, like little tiny crazy koalas.
Yeah,
like
basically.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me very much because it goes through walls. It reminds me of and I know when I saw this, I really liked it, but I think in general it's cool. The movie's seen as being crap, but the Final Fantasy movie, the one where they're fighting the things that like bash your soul out.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Yeah, it's a very old movie.
Oh, it's okay. My first thought with it was they're coming through the walls from Babylon 5.
Yeah.
So I mean that's even earlier.
Or I don't know if you've seen a movie that I really enjoy on Netflix, a movie called Spectre.
Oh, yeah, Spectre.
Yes. Yeah.
Right, where like there are these invisible things like freezing people from the inside out.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Just taking creatures.
I think so. It should be pointed out that you can just shoot these things. You don't have to CC them.
You can shoot them. They are deployable weapons, which means that they will be deactivated by a deactivator.
That's true.
Though it will have to be from outside of 8 inches.
Well, it'll be face to face in 8
Oh,
inches.
true. It'll be face to face against 3 dice. Yep.
3 dice, but you still burst 1 with +6 on a deactivator within 8 inches. So it's not like, look, it's not the choice that I would make, but it's still a choice.
Fair.
They also have wounds, which means they're perfect targets for being nommed by Protheon models.
I suppose if you can get close enough and not die to it, yeah. Oh no, because you can just react to the guard, can't you?
So if your opponent is playing a combined army sectorial or combined army, maybe don't put this within range of their, or attempt to not put this within range, walking distance of their Norkius or their Sheskin, because you might be dealing with a much harder to kill thing.
I'm just gonna super quickly check because I'm wondering whether it says a trooper with wounds, because it's not a trooper.
That's interesting.
You're probably right though.
Check Protheon. I mean, that's what most people are saying. There was a little bit of rules discourse recently in the Big Infinity thing about because they're not marked as neutral or allied elements, technically in the rules text, that Sheskin could nom on her own crazy creature, which isn't the case. Don't eat your own crazy creatures, guys. It's not healthy.
Okay, right. You can eat it, but the requirements for Protheon is you must be must reach or be in silhouette contact with the target.
Yeah, breach.
Yeah, reach would work with the thing.
Guard is still reaching with the CC attack. So
It's just wounds inflicted.
Yep.
Fuck. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Be careful. I'd say, more than anything, be bloody careful. If your opponent's running Calibans, because that's a real easy extra wound for a model that really enjoys when it gets two to 3 wounds.
Calibans are great, but Orcish Cheskin also culprits, or Armor Samaritans also culprits. So yeah, just a thought for people.
Yeah. So I see these sort of as like the turrets. They might only end up taking up half an order. It sort of depends because they are small. So if you put them on top of like a small rooftop, they can have a lot of impact there because it means you sort of can't walk against the wall because you'll be within that 8-inch bubble.
I've also had them deployed in blind alleyways that were facing backwards.
That's the other thing, is that if you put them in a sort of a spot, if you can sort of imagine like a little nook where they can just sort of sit there, and just be a real pain. Like it takes a long time to do that extra 8 to go around. Yeah, I can see them being
layering arrows with them is also useful. I was playing a game against Tristan before the 400-point tournament, and he needed to kill my avatar, but had to run Deferson into 8 inches of the crazy creature to do it. So, he ARO'd by shooting the avatar. Or he spent his orders shooting the avatar rather than CC attacking the crazy creature, and the crazy creature just killed Deferson in one round of things. So they can be very, very dangerous. They are an AP damage 13 AP CC weapon.
Yeah,
they're dangerous to people who to models that don't have martial arts. But as soon as you get a model that has martial arts in there, the odds swing heavily in their favor.
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah.
So it almost feels like for missions that have quasi creatures, you almost want to have a model in there with martial arts too. Because they can't. The quasi creatures must ARO. You can't choose to have them not ARO, so that means your opponent can pick which models go in and which models basically target it, essentially.
Yeah. And
all you have to do is then walk a martial arts model behind that building where the quasi creature is and get it.
It would still be affected by stealth, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, there's no reason why it wouldn't. It doesn't have sixth sense.
So the one thing I'm seeing is like a sort of a good use for a crazy creature is keeping your opponent out of cover. So if you've got this ARO piece, and you put the crazy creature such that if they were in cover, that crazy creature's hitting them every single time they want to take a shot and they can't get fired back on. I can see that being like really big because as soon as you're shooting something out of cover, the lack of armor, the lack of that neg 3, there's not a model in the game that I would necessarily be not afraid of if I had to shoot it without any other mods outside of cover. Because that that lack of armor is just huge, and that
Jotun.
Well, sorry, no, I'm saying that one I wouldn't worry about like getting shot at, right? Because remember that if let's say the Yotum's shooting at me in cover, and then like the range is all equal, even a Kesotsu or a moderator is still BS 13 at that point. So it's still not a great shot.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I think this is going to have more impact on the game than turrets or any type of deployable scenario item, because it provides so many more little options on how you use it.
I don't think it's useful as stopping people from exiting their DZ. I think I've
No.
found the most use for it just planning to get next to an objective, or even guarding your HVT in something like countermeasures or something. If countermeasures even has the crazy creatures, I don't know. But like guarding your HVT, guarding an objective, and then forcing your opponent to maybe spend their last order of a turn dealing with the crazy creature rather than jumping on the middle objective and acquisition.
Or really making those desperate situations really desperate. Like you were saying with the Deferzen. I'm guessing that was like his last order or something, because I would see no reason why Deferzen wouldn't hit the crazy creature and then shoot.
It's because the avatar was in suppressive fire and would have just killed the person.
Oh no, well, I don't know the situation, but if he could hit the crazy creature, then
there's no way. I layered the arrows
in
a way that he couldn't use the person to kill it.
Yeah, I see this crazy creature as A, frustrating movement, as I was mentioning before, and B, like you were saying, you put that crazy creature. Yeah, that's pretty much we were saying the same thing. Is you put the crazy creature in a spot where you have to either not be in cover and deal with like not having cover, right? Or you're in cover, which I'm guessing what the Deferzen did, but then you have to just let the crazy creature hit you for free. And none of those is a good idea. So I mean, if I was to give one advice just from reading it, is if you can kill your opponent's crazy creature as soon as it's convenient to, because I think it's going to make your life a lot easier.
Same with the defense turret. Like it'll either have a huge impact on games or it'll have no impact on games.
True. Yeah. But I think the lack of need for line of sight makes the crazy creatures
also
like
you have
infinitely more dangerous.
Also, you have up to 36 inches up the table that you can put it in. It's got to be what 4 inches outside, at least 4 inches outside of your enemy's DZ. So anywhere between, depending on the mission, 12 to 20 inches outside up the table.
And we should
a lot of space to deal with.
We should point out, unlike the QAZ zones, the crazy creatures don't attack you. Your crazy creature doesn't attack you, does it?
It doesn't. No.
Yeah. So you are safe from your own crazy creatures.
Yes. You are. They are quantum anomalies.
Okay. So that's all of sort of like the extra rules that have been added this season. So let's move on to the new missions that have been added. However, just before we do, a bit of, I suppose, in memoriam, we have lost cryogenics, quadra control, and rescue.
Yep.
Anyone
lost Annihilation? Oh, sorry. Annihilation is no longer in the regular set of ITS, but it's now in direct action.
Yeah.
Which, given this mission, it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, Annihilation in a normal ITS tournament, go for it. It's just a punch your opponent in the face sort of scenario. It's fine.
It's simple enough to be direct action.
Yeah.
I think it just doesn't have classifieds, which was the point of direct action in the first place.
Do we feel particularly strongly about any of those particular ones being removed?
I like cryogenics.
Yeah, I'm disappointed to see cryogenics go away so quickly. I would like to see that stick around for another season or two, but then again, I can hope to see it in a future ITS season.
Yeah,
that's true.
The only thing with cryogenics is probably just review the way like all the rules were written, because I think it was one of the very few missions where like people spent months figuring out how the hell it worked.
I think they're doing the same thing with the couple of missions that have been placed in, like the new missions are quite confusing as well.
Quadra Control's gone, which was sort of the Annihilation version of Quadrant Control, where the other two had like controlling buttons and pressing buttons and things like that.
Yeah, 'cause
Um,
we've still got supremacy and superiority, which the regular and the direct action versions of each other. They're quadrant control with buttons.
yeah. I would have liked. I don't remember. Did Quadro Control have a bunch of classifieds?
I don't know.
One moment.
I'll take a quick look because if it did, I would kind of miss the idea of sort of.
I think quadrant control only had. I want to say had one, but you got some of the additional points for controlling quadrants next to your opponent's DZ. Yeah, one
Quadro Control
classified.
had one classified, yeah.
Look, I'm a bit sad to see like the simple quadrant control removed, but yeah, I'm not gonna shed it. I'm honestly not gonna shed a tear.
Yeah.
And rescue's gone. I think it's pretty safe to say that
Yay!
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I was about to say it's pretty sure it's safe to say that no one really enjoyed rescue as like a mission that they would love to play over and over again. We lost it, but I think we've got its better looking brother
Yeah, yeah. Evacuation
in
definitely
evacuation.
is designed to replace it,
Yeah.
and for
So
reasons we will get into,
yeah,
I think that's good.
So let's go. I think we'll just start in the order that we've got them listed. Let's start with
Mhm.
B Pong, or I think as everybody who is concentrating on what it's actually called calls it beer pong. Have you guys had a game of B Pong yet?
I have not.
I've played Beep Pong, yes.
Okay.
One game of Beep Pong.
What did you think?
Um,
Actually, just quickly before you mention what you think, let's actually go through um
the actual mission itself.
the actual mission itself. So,
Very good play.
yeah, B Pong has the main mission objectives are at the end of each game round, the tracking beacon is totally within the enemy's half of the game table for one objective point. So that's 3 objective points total throughout the game. At the end of each game round, control the tracking beacon for 1 objective points. So again, that's another 3 objective points throughout the entire game.
Mhm.
And at the end of the game, control at least 1 console for 1 objective point. So again, we've got another 3 possible objective points throughout the entire game, and 1 classified brings you up to your 10. As far as the special rules that we mentioned up top, there aren't any. So no QAZ zones, no crazy creatures. There is an exclusion zone, which is obviously not part of the special rules, but it should
the border skirmish.
yeah should be noted. Yeah, border skirmishes comes with this one. So the scenario special rules. So this mission centers around a tracking beacon, which is a beacon placed in the center of the table, represented by your standard sort of beacon beacon
25
token.
mil token.
Yep. When in face-to-face contact with it, you can spend an entire order to move the beacon, right? That is at least 4 inches away from where your where the unit that spent the order is. So, which means if you're on the far side of the
It's
Up to
within 4 inches.
yeah, within 4 inches, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Right, which means if you're on the far side of the beacon, you can move it further than if you're on the near side of the beacon.
Mhm.
And only a specialist can declare that skill. The rules for it is it must be fully supported on the surface, so no like half base or anything like that. It must be possible to draw the path from its start to its finish, so that sort of weird thing that if you have this room that you can't get into, you can't put it in there. And I suppose the other part is it says it just has to be in its final position at the conclusion of the order.
One important thing to mention on the specialists, each specialist can only declare that skill once per round.
Yes.
So you can't have someone just kick the ball all the way. You have to have one person come up, they can move it 4 inches. You then have to bring another specialist in if you want to move it another 4 inches.
Yeah, so you can't have like your 6'4" Azura or or like Stigmaton or whatever. Kick it, move, kick it, move, kick it, move.
Yeah.
The other thing is on the center line, there are 2 consoles placed, 12 inches from the table edge. when you go up to the console, you can activate it. If you succeed at activating it, you have the option of 2 actions. The first one is the nudge the tracking beacon. That moves it 2 inches from its starting location, like at the start of that short order. Or you can magnetize the tracking beacon, which moves it 6 inches towards the center of the game table. So that would be the dead center of the game table, not just the center line.
Yeah, so where it started.
Yep. Again, another important thing to point out is if you activate a console, you cannot activate that beacon until your opponent has. So if you go up to it and spend both orders to nudge it 2 inches each time, if your opponent then doesn't touch the consoles and just kicks the beacon the 4 inches, you still can't touch that beacon. You still can't touch those consoles to move that beacon. That's it. Specialists is normal hackers, forward observers, specialists, specialist operators, engineers, and there's no bonuses for any sort of specialist for either of them.
Relocate track beacon doesn't require a whip order.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you want to relocate the entire order, you don't have to do a roll or anything. You just do it.
Yeah, just the console that requires.
Yeah. So, what did you think, Josh, when you played this?
I enjoyed the game. It's very dynamic. At the time I was a little bit heartbroken and incredulous that it took an entire order to kick the beacon, but upon review of my own internal biases, I think it's a great little addition to the game mode. Means that you need to really think about the mission in the first turn. The game mode seems to discourage a little bit of alpha striking, which is nice because it takes a fair amount of orders to get to that beacon and to push it.
I think with the new missions, that's going to be a theme, is completing the missions and getting the objective points is pretty fucking order intensive.
It's very difficult to play them as firefight with extra steps at the end.
Yeah, getting into a fight, especially in this particular scenario, is difficult because if you're not doing something to control beacons or move beacons or control consoles, you're just not getting points.
It brings a big advantage for toolbox specialists. So a specialist that is quick and can shoot with a relatively high whip is an excellent addition to this one. There are a few that come to mind, like perhaps the Evader in Nomads, or the Boktar in Hackaslam. They will be really, really good at this, and as to a lesser extent, maybe tags with their pilots. They can just sit in front of the beacon. Their pilot can get out and push it, and then get back in, and still be shooting and quick the entire way. Controlling it is arguably more important than moving it, I think. Because it seems to be easier. Yeah, especially if you're going first. Going first is it's super difficult in this mission.
This mission, because this is the one I played with against Kyle.
Yep.
From Whip 12. I'm gonna milk that for as long as I can. The tabletop throwdown. Look me up. I think this particular mission is going first is like I'm trying to think of another mission where no one ever wanted to go first, but it'll be one of those missions where if you win the dice roll, you're gonna pick second, and if you lose the dice roll, you might hard second. The problem I have with this particular mission in terms of like that first and second turn balance is because it's so order intensive, and because you have to put your army potentially in your opponent's face. The response can just be brutal. Like let's say you optimize it or whatever. You have one unit, like one specialist on control, like on each. Oh, sorry, one troop would just say on controlling each of the things. That's at least 3 models or 3 orders that are in your opponent's face. Right? That your opponent can simply go and say, okay, I only have to move once or twice. I see this dude that you've put near me. I kill him. You lose the points for controlling the beacon. And now go and kill both the guys off the turrets and hold, the consoles, and hold one of those consoles. I now get, let's say 2 points to your 1 point in this particular round, and that's if the beacon's like in your half. So I think, like, I do like the mission. I think if they changed some of, like, I think the moving the beacon, if that was end of turn scoring, I think just moving the beacon into their half, if that was end of turn scoring, that would incentivize, that would allow the first player not necessarily to control it and not to have to sacrifice a piece in your opponent's half. Otherwise, I get it. It is a rough mission for going first.
Tough. It's super tough.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember whether I went first or not.
But now that you mentioned it, you are absolutely right that if you can keep your opponent off one of the consoles, like any of the consoles, and have kicked the beacon over to their side, or just controlled the beacon. I mean, hell, I suppose you could be really cagey and bring it further towards your side, give them a point, and control it on your side.
You could.
Yeah, like that. I'll bring up another interesting thing for evacuation. But you could do that, and that's still you being up a couple of points.
Well, there's 3 points you can get per turn, and it feels like you want to choose 2 and try to get the 3rd.
Yeah.
And if you have to sacrifice that 1 to get 2, you're still up by 1 point.
Yeah, and then if you can compound that each turn, you're up by 1 point, 2 points. So at the end of it, you're up by 3 points. If we talk about like a tournament and punishing your opponent, if you're up by 3 points, they don't get their defensive bonus.
Yeah.
If you're so inclined to think that way.
One thing that I would have to consider going first in this is if you try to control the beacon as first player, you also have to keep your opponent off of both of the consoles. Because if they come over to get a console, they move the beacon and it moves off of your model controlling it.
You're no longer controlling it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct.
So you can fortify it all you want, but the beacon might move without you.
Yeah, I suppose the other thing you can do, which would sort of hurt your opponent, is you could, on your turn, get the beacon, kick it as far as possible, activate the beacons to go even further, and be like, okay, I'm just going to back off from the beacon. It's, practically in your, it's at the back of your thing. Enjoy spending, 4 orders or whatever to try and kick this back towards me. So there are some interesting things you can do going first. Whereas I think second has the simpler game. Which makes it easier. I think going first, it's one of those ones where you have to decide on the points you're going to go for, and only go for extra points if you're really dominating the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, but yeah, I mean, that's all there is. That's all there really is to it. There's not much of a trick there. I I do think in this particular one that border skirmisher would be a big advantage.
Yep.
Being able to
If it's gonna be
deploy,
Mhm.
you at least get that extra inch, drop down. You know, if you're a Bukta or any of those fast specialists.
For the parachutist, I don't think it's as big of an impact.
They
But
get closer to the
for
console.
Yeah.
They get closer to the
oh,
console.
true, they get to deploy within
Mm.
very 1 to 2 order or 2 to 3 orders of the console. Yep.
That said, and this is something that I think the description of the terrain
Mhm.
is like really important for this particular mission.
Mhm.
When I was playing my game of beer pong, I noticed that the way that the table was set up essentially had like two sort of L-shaped walls facing in opposite directions. That meant that each the beacon was like sorry, not one beacon, one console was covered for each like for each of us.
Mhm.
And I think if you're doing a tournament with Pong in it, it's important to consider like the position that the consoles are going to be in.
Mhm.
And probably it's one of the few times where I say try and make it symmetrical as far as the defensibility of each console is.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, you make a good point. In a tournament, you have to make sure not just that there is a space to fit each of these on the appropriate place,
mm,
but that the accessibility of them is taken into account.
yeah. No, normally I wouldn't like, let's say, an acquisition.
Mhm.
I wouldn't really be like harping on about that. But in this particular one, because you
Mhm.
have to activate it, you have to control it. It's all at the end of the round. It's probably something worth keeping in mind that you
Mhm.
keep the cover symmetrical.
Yeah.
I don't know. Was it okay in your game, Josh? When you played B Pong, how was it, like? Did you? I mean, what was like the result of your game?
I think it was a draw.
Okay, yeah.
Um,
You really got to experience like how difficult the mission
yeah,
itself
it was
is.
really
Yeah.
tough. I was playing Caledonia against Dante, who was playing
Mm.
uh, Emo, I think,
Okay.
and um, we were playing reinforcements as well.
Okay.
So I we like very little interaction
Beacon.
with the beacon. I went first, and didn't manage to do a hell of a lot of damage to Dante, and I didn't. I scored 0 points in the first turn.
Oh, okay.
Um, but I managed to bring back a little bit by basically just applying judicial use of a Mormare T2 rifle to all of Dante's forces, because if you're playing against MO, a damage 15 AP T2 rifle, bloody good
Yeah.
thing. So yeah, just it was a tough game. It's a tough game.
Yeah.
Also, just like Cano reinforcement groups are insanely good. Just bolts. Bolts are insanely good.
Yeah.
Even if
But
they are just marksmanship with a combi rifle, just deleted everything that I had.
that
It was great.
that was one thing. When I was playing my game, just as an aside, um he had a Harris of like so like senior, because he was playing foreign company. He had Senior Massacre, Avicenna, and a Bolt Spitfire. And I was thinking to myself, if because he went first, I thought to myself, if you were going second, that bolt, right, I'd be in perfect range bands. That bolt would have just torn me to bits. Right, that close range ability that they have. But yeah. All right, let's move on to our next new mission, which is evacuation. So this is the uh, more handsome brother, son, however you want to look at it, of rescue. Have you guys happened to have a game of it?
Yeah, I've played a game of that.
Yeah, so
I've played at least one game of it.
So I think we've all had a game of it. So just going through the scoring real quickly, it's actually even very simple. It's at the end of the game, have extracted, get 1 objective point for each civilian extracted. Then you get a point at the end of the game for each enemy HVT extracted, and there is 1 classified for 1 objective point. There is an exclusion zone in this mission as well. And the way the table setup for this one's a little bit a little bit more complicated. So you have 5 civilians all within the exclusion zone. They're sort of they're sort of placed in like that sort of what you see on a dice. So there is 4 of them are 8 inches from, so on the edge of the exclusion zone, 8 inches from the middle line, 12 inches in, and then there is 1 dead center of the table. You then have your HVTs, which are deployed as per usual.
You deploy 2 HVTs in this
Yes.
mission, and they are deployed as normal.
Yes. And so the idea is in this mission, you go up to the civilian HVTs as well as the enemy HVTs. You pass the civivac roll. So for anyone who's never touched or done civivac before, it starts off as go up to the civilian and into silhouette contact with a civilian. Anyone can civivac, as in any model can civivac, except for REMS and impetuous models, and models that are part of fire teams, or that have the peripheral rule. So your helper bots and your like diva bots or whatever.
Tard cannot not in CHTVT to go for a feedback ride.
Yes. Yes, but important, Batard can't, but Carmen can.
As long as it chose to forfeit impetuous.
True. Okay, yeah, sorry. Wrong one to pick. Right?
Yes.
Right. The controller of the peripheral unit doesn't have the peripheral skill. The peripheral itself, so in this case, Batard, or in the case of like the Razor, the Diva bot, I think it's just the Diva bot, I think it is. Right. They're the ones that have peripheral, the controller doesn't. So the controller can pick up the civilian, and you can pick up 2 civilians per person. That's the maximum you can pick up.
Yeah, a lot have 2 models in Sims back.
Yeah, exactly. So you go up to them, you pass initially a whip +3 roll. Right, and then that's for the civilians and that's for the enemy HVTs. If that roll is failed, you then lose that +3 and can pass the roll again to try and pick them up. Much better than the old rules for Civivac. If anyone played ITS like 12 or something, where they would run away 2 inches and become hostile, and it was -3 at that point.
Do you lose the +3 bonus now?
Pretty sure. I'm pretty sure I read it when I played it. You still lose.
Yeah, if the roll is failed, this is repeated as many times as necessary. Each time, spend the corresponding skill.
The +3.
Yeah, it's not in there though. There's a note for if the civilian is hostile due to some other scenario or game condition, then the +3 mod doesn't apply. But failing the roll no longer makes them hostile.
Oh, okay. Apologies. So yeah, you get to just keep rolling to pick them up. Then you go and do the one sort of special rule for this particular scenario, which is you go up to the console, and for each civilian you have in Civivac, you roll. So sorry, I should say the consoles are put center of the table on your deployment line. For every HVT that you have or civilian that you have, you roll a whip roll, and you then extract that civilian or that HVT, and then that counts towards your points at the end of the game.
So only a specialist can extract them.
Yes, that's true.
Though any model that we already discussed can grab the HVT or civilian, bring them back to a specialist, and the specialist could then civivac them and evacuate them.
So it is important to point out when like transferring stuff like that, you when you're transferring stuff like that, you lose. Sorry, there. When transferring civilians and things like that, the one who's taking it has to be spending the orders, not the one who's giving it.
Yes.
And other important to note is that the consoles are just consoles. There is no your console or your opponent's console. Which means that you can grab an enemy HVT and use your opponent's consoles to extract those HVTs. So,
and considering there are two civilians and probably 2 HVTs that are going to be close to your opponent's side, that may be the quicker route.
Especially late game when like the deployment and the defense sort of gets a bit more messy, and you might be able to sort of get your way through to actually getting into like to your opponent's console. Early game, you're probably better off running them back. So what was your game like of this, Nick?
My game, I realized that the mission has a steeper learning curve than I thought it did. I did not expect how order intensive it was to get those civilians out. And I think the game ended, I want to say 3 points to 2.
Yeah. So it should be,
and one of those points was because of the classified.
Yeah. So we should. I want to point out that because of the way like the civ evacuing and the actual evacuation works, to get the full amount of points, like to extract all of your enemies, the enemy's HVTs and the civilians, it takes at least 14 orders because you have to extract 5 civilians, 2 enemy HVTs. Right. 14 orders to get like full points that involves like no killing, no moving, right? Just like the move to get the civilian and the whip roll to get into civivac, or the whip roll to extract them. 14 orders is huge. It's a massive,
and that's assuming that the specialist picks them up and civivacs, or it picks them up, civivacs, and evacuates them.
Yeah, and that
so no handoff.
That's obviously not take into account the orders spent to do the moving up and forth. Any sort of like as soon as you spend 10 orders shooting at your opponent, I'd probably say at that point, if like a 10-0 or whatever win, impossible.
It's gone.
Right, it's impossible. This one, if you're gonna get 10 points on, you either kick the shit out of your opponent turn 1. Like,
though not into retreat.
Yeah, though not into retreat. Or your opponent has made a massive mistake and you're in an army that, like, you've got Brando de Castro, who's a specialist with superior infiltration. It's about the only situations I can think that you'd be able to comfortably do this, comfortably be able to get 10 orders. 10 objective points.
It is more order intensive, but one of the things I really like about this over Rescue is that once you've spent those orders and you evacuated the HVT,
it's a point.
Points are locked.
Yeah.
They are your points. Your opponent can't take them away by getting a good shot on a model. That means you no longer have them in civivac, which means you no longer get points for them. Now, if you spend all the orders, you get them in, the points are yours, they're banked, you just don't count them until the end of the game.
That's why, like, one of the things I wanted to like sort of play around with, and this is also with Capture Protect, is to get points more based on just where you manage to get the HVT to. Doesn't stop your opponent from pulling them the other way. But yeah, this is that sort of thing where you get them to somewhere, you've done something, you can lock in points. But I can see that this particular mission, like as far as the tournament goes, is about like getting to 5 victory points.
Yes.
and then just winning the game. Like that, like if you're going for the win of whatever tournament or competitive game you're doing, that's what you're sort of looking for. Sorry, go on.
I say this is probably going to be a mission that, if it's in a tournament, you write a list around this mission.
Yeah, I definitely think the ones we're probably covering with the new missions, if they're in a tournament, they're the ones you build around.
Yeah.
Especially
this
this one, because you cannot take, like, your toolbox RAM is useless. It cannot pick up the civilians, it cannot extract them. And so you're looking for whatever fast, either something that's fast and tough with good whip, or you're looking for the full package in a fast, tough specialist.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah, if you have access to a specialist bike, you should be trying to explain why you don't have them in your list.
Yeah, like
it should be automatic in your list.
Yeah, like the Kuroshi Rider, the Arigato Killer Hacker. I can see them being incredibly powerful in this. I tried in this particular one because I wanted to try it. I've been trying to figure out like where the Stigmatron fits into Bakunin. These missions that need fast, tough specialists, perfect for it.
Because it doesn't have to get out of its tag to be a specialist.
It doesn't have anything that, well, technically it does, but it doesn't really have anything to get out of the tag. Josh, you had a similar experience to Nick, didn't you, where your game of evacuation was relatively low scoring as well?
Yeah, super low scoring. I got the win purely off the benefit of Tristan rolling too high on a couple of his whip checks. So, his fiddler just could not roll under an 18, which means that, unfortunately, she failed to civivac a couple of models and she failed to extract them after she'd civivac'd them.
Yeah.
So, it's super order intensive, like we've already stated. It's a very difficult mission to score high on. Interestingly, there's nothing stopping you, just from a quick pass of the rules, there's nothing stopping you from extracting your own HVTs if you really want to spend orders to deny your opponent's points.
I think it is an oversight, but it is possible as written to extract your own HVTs.
Yeah.
You have to have a civilian and your own HVT on the same model. The civilian allows you to do the extract skill, and then the extract skill doesn't say it has to be an enemy HVT.
Right. Yes. Okay. They've missed a single word in the activate
there is
thing.
one instance of HVT that does not have enemy on it.
That should have said enemy.
On a repass of the rules, it actually wouldn't stop your opponent you would actually just be scoring your opponent points. Because it does say at the end of the game, for each extracted enemy HVT.
Yeah, you're right.
So
the HVT has the property of being extracted, therefore
that does bring up another. So the main objectives, I think, need to be reworded because as it stands, based on that reading, everyone gets points for every civilian that gets extracted.
Yes. Well,
because
it's just a classified. It's just score your classified. That's it. Done. Game over.
Yeah, because as it with the wording as it stands, no one gets credit for extracting a civilian, and everyone gets credit for each extracted civilian.
This isn't even like, we can sometimes complain about like the Spanish to English translation issues. This is just like us looking at it and being like, oh yeah, technically.
The civivac order. The civivac rule needs a change.
Being able to extract your own HVT is a oversight typo type. But yeah, the main objectives really need to clarify for each civilian you have extracted. Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, if that's the case, it's turned this into a very low scoring game into a very high scoring game where it's very hard to
look, it's 5-5.
To like not draw.
Yeah.
So I can see a lot of this game is one of two things is as far as scoring is fighting over that middle civilian,
Mhm.
or you're classified, as well as trying to in your first turn snipe your opponent's one of their HVTs.
Or they're specialists. It's also one that you can look at the board and go,
Yeah.
where are my opponent's specialists?
Yeah.
Because if you can look and go, they've got 3 specialists and I can take them out first turn.
This this is one of the scenarios that would be really good to pair in like a tournament to pair with anyone that gives you points for killing specialists.
Firefight.
Firefight.
Yeah, firefight.
Yeah.
Right. This would be great because you would make a list full of specialists, and then you come to firefight, and you'd be like, "Oh, I might have too many."
Oh dear.
Yeah. So
The
the
feedback rule needs to
oversights
be real.
in the wording aside, Josh, you do have a point. You can civivac your own HVT. There's nothing stopping you. That is perfectly legal in any scenario. So
I mean, that used to be the thing, and
you could spend the extra orders to put your HVT in an even worse place for your opponent.
that's what used to be sort of a thing you would do in unmasking is you'd grab your HVTs and pull them. You spend your turn pulling them back so that they're harder to get to. Yeah, I mean, I think we all had a very similar experience. I happened in my particular game. I think it was 5-2. I'm going to say or 5-1, something like that. Interestingly, though, and we sort of brought it up earlier, is in this mission. I suppose it's, I don't know if it's kind of if it's really hidden or anything. Tags are actually really good in this mission because they're tough. They can pick up civilians. Generally, have pretty good whip, and when you get them back to your console, especially if you've got enough orders, you just pop out the pilot. I know my opponent had the Oyaroi, and he's trying to figure out how to like pass it off to his hacker and all that sort of thing. I was just said to him, just use the pilot, just pop the pilot out. And because the way when you civivac something, it's then just like a token that just needs to be in silhouette contact with the model. As soon as you pop out, the Oyoroi's model is now the pilot, so it just is in face-to-face contact with the pilot. The pilot then does its thing, goes back, jumps back into the deck. So yeah, I think this, but like one of the better things is piloted tags in this mission, especially if they're like a small piloted tag. I think are probably the way to go because they're quick, they're tough, and they can actually do the extraction. So they're the full package as far as this mission is concerned.
Yep, I agree. Pilot tag's great. Yeah. I think the civivac rule in general needs a bit of a reword. Because there's nothing in evacuation that turns civilians hostile. So you never have to worry about the hostile civilian rule. A HVT is not technically a civilian, but can you still civivac a civilian? It used to be that there was a.
I think HVTs are civilians.
I don't believe that's the case, but I could be wrong. It will be in the HVT rule specifically. And yeah, so there's a few things that need to sort of have a bit of a rework, but otherwise, I think it's a definite improvement on rescue. I'll say that much. Yeah, good.
Yep. Yeah, HVT models are neutral civilians to both players.
There you go.
There you go. I think what might, I don't know. I was going to say maybe make the enemy HVTs hostile, but all I can think of that is if you do that, there's going to be too many situations where somebody's stuck rolling on a 13 or 14 and can't just roll the fucking number.
In
Um,
Yeah.
addition to those 14 orders, each of those orders is a whip roll, and
yes.
only 7 of them are at +3. The other 7 are flat whip rolls with no ability to get a bonus.
Yeah.
And even my game as well. I think my opponent had worse luck with me than I did, where he just sat there and had to burn orders to get a civilian extracted,
And
because
Yes.
if he didn't do it, he wasn't going to get another chance.
this is another mission where I'd like to see a little bit of the scoring changed up just a tiny bit,
Mhm.
in that you get a point for each civilian up to 3,
Mhm.
and then you have a points for same amount of civilians and more civilians.
Yeah, that would be good. So a little bit closer to rescue, in that there's uh, relative progress, not just absolute progress.
Yeah, and that would allow it to be a little bit higher scoring.
Mhm.
Would be nice on people who just get bad lucked on dice.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, eventually you're gonna do the roll. Right? If you extract 2 and your
Mhm.
opponent extracts 1, you're golden.
Mhm.
And even then, you know, even if you manage to extract, like, let's say you extract 3 civilians, and you get like +2 points because you got more.
Mhm.
Your opponent gets both the HVTs and they're classified, to draw.
Mhm.
Um, but other than that, I think this is it's a good, better twist
Mhm.
on rescue. I really enjoyed the game I have. Yeah, it is complicated. Yes, you will have to build your lists around it. I don't know if it's going to be really mean to any particular factions, because any faction that I think that doesn't have the greatest specialists, you mentioned Caledonia before, Josh, maybe don't have the best specialist, but they got smoke, so that they can make it easy on themselves to actually push up.
Mhm.
So I think this is a good, mission,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, rescue's going to be a tough mission for a lot of those, a lot of the older designed sectorials. Yeah,
I think
I think it's going to more be dependent on the speed at which the sectorals specialists move.
yeah, that's
Because if you've got a sectoral that doesn't have specialists over 4/4, it's going to be a rough mission.
yeah, that's the one thing. It's like the one disadvantage of Bakunin for the most part is that they're slow. Um, and so yeah, that was one thing that I was like, like a sectorial with slow specialists is going to
Mhm.
struggle, but they'll have advantages in
Yeah.
other places. So
Mhm.
whatever. I think I've spoken enough about the last 2 missions. Who wants to do last launch? I think it is.
Uh, sure. I have not played this yet, and I think both of you haven't played it yet either.
no, I've only
Uh,
I like I said, I had the benefit of testing because
Mhm.
this was based on our local Dante, his mission for the Lost of Luchen custom mission challenge. There's a little
Yeah.
shout out to him in the actual ATS document, which is amazing.
Yeah, so we
Um,
should point out
Yeah.
right underneath the title last launch, Dante gets like a personal shout out, and we get a personal shout out. So
yeah,
when we promised
priceless.
that you could get a mission in ITS, we weren't lying. You absolutely could.
We deliver.
So this
Uh,
was his like Mikey Lost Lover thing, but it's sort of split in half, isn't it?
yeah,
Yes. Last launch and evacuation are basically Dante's scenario split in half.
Okay.
yeah,
All right, tell us
yeah.
about it, Nick.
So with this scenario, um, one moment. Sorry. Hmm. Lovely bit of dead air for the people listening to the stream of
Get
this.
him. He
Uh,
had a drink of water.
yes, yes.
He's
So
human. Get him.
This is the one where there is a control or an armory in the middle, and your goal is to evacuate your own troops off the board. So start off with objectives. At the end of the game, have extracted more army points than the adversary for 4. Have extracted more specialist troops for 2. Have killed more specialist troops for 2. Have killed the same number of specialist troops for 1. And then at the end of the game, dominate the launching tower for 1 more objective point, with 1 classified to round it out to 10. There's an exclusion zone 8 inches from the center. No quarter, obviously, because the escape route is in the middle of the board. So there's 2 ID scanners 8 inches in from the table edges on the center line. You can use a short skill to download an ID from that. Only specialists can do it, and it takes a whip roll. However, the specialist can then swap the ID for a short skill to a friendly or to an allied trooper who does not have to be a specialist. Troopers can have up to 1 ID at a time and can't be in marker state when they have it.
Interestingly, with this one, I don't think this particular one, like, you know how we talk about the one who's picking it up has to be the one who spends the order?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this one has it because it's the player that swaps the IDs. Oh no, hold on. The place to take it next
must
to
be in contact.
Yeah, trooper has to be still at contact with an allied trooper with an ID.
So it's
No,
the
it doesn't.
trooper that's receiving the ID. It's like it's same language as it always is.
No, it's
sorry. You're correct. It's a trooper receiving the ID that spends the short skill.
Yeah, so I didn't read this. It's got. I want to point out that there's 3 bullet points to this fucking skill. I read 2 of them and didn't read the last one, which says the ID token is put next to the trooper that declared the skill.
Yeah. So the launch tower is in the middle of the board. It is an objective room. It has 4 wide gates, and they start open. The ID checker is a console in the middle of the launch tower, and a trooper with an ID token can use the extract identified trooper short skill if they're in silhouette contact with the ID checker. With a note that they cannot do this as part of a coordinated order, which was a nice little holdover from Dante's scenario. I don't think I've seen that in any other ITS mission before.
What was which one?
Prohibition on using a scenario as a coordinated order.
Oh, okay.
Civivac is the only one that I can think of that has the provision.
Okay. So you can't have 4 troopers with IDs scan at the same time.
Each one of them has to do a whole short seal by themselves to extract.
Yeah. I'm gonna toot my own horn here. That was an edit that I made to this mission.
When I saw it while editing the scenarios, I really liked that, and it's like, that was. They thought this through. That was a niche little thing to catch.
I'm fairly certain I did it to him.
Okay,
and,
so I was about to say, did this come up in play testing? Because if you managed to just think about it, no, God no,
I'm not that clever. I did it to. I mean, it did come up. It came up in playtesting because I performed it as a coordinated order, and extracted almost 100 points off straight away. It was interesting.
So the effects of extracting identified trooper: no need to perform a roll. Remove the trooper from the game table and any peripherals that it has that are inside the launching tower. Add the removed trooper's points cost to the player's extracted army points. Each player's extracted army points total is open information.
Which is a new, points being open information is something that is not.
That was my edit.
Normal rule. Was that your edit? That's very cool.
Yeah, that whole bullet point was one that I put in.
Nice.
Troopers removed in this way still count toward players' victory points, even if they entered a null state or dead state during the order they were evacuated. That is something that they added in, and I really like it.
That's really cool.
So that means that you can do a suicide rush to extract yourself, and if your corpse gets out of here, that's fine because they can res you once you're off planet.
I like the idea of going into a Star Trek transporter or whatever the fuck they're called. You get
Yeah.
to the other side and you've just got a hole in your chest from where
Yeah.
someone's shot you. You're like, oh, fuck. You just drop dead at the
Yeah.
transporter. But the commanders look at your dead body on their transporter platform and go, success. We got him.
We got him out.
We got him out.
That does interact with the killing rule because the killing rule in this scenario has an extra paragraph on it. And that's troopers that have been extracted are never considered to be killed by the adversary. So
Really-
not only do they basically, it means that any trooper that went down to enemy fire as it was being extracted is healed back up and doesn't count as killed by the opponent and counts as being extracted for you.
Interestingly, that might mean that if you have some way of knowing for sure that your opponent's going to extract that troop, there's no point in shooting at them. You may as well do something else.
Yes.
So I don't know, dodge for extra movement or something. I don't know.
You get in front of troopers that are going to get to the point, the ID checker as well. Yeah,
Or probably one that's really good is if you see that and you've got like drop bears or mine launch or something, shoot that stuff.
Yeah.
Deploy a crazy koala or something that can actually stop the next guy from getting through.
Let's see. Specialist troops, baggage. There is an Evo Hacker special rule for this, and that is troopers possessing Evo Hacker device can be extracted without using an ID, which is a nice little add-on there because the Evo Hackers are the ones in charge of the extraction, so makes sense that they would be ID'd already.
Interestingly, what happens if an Evo hacker that is concentrating on a spell, using some D&D terms, gets extracted?
I would assume that it is cancelled immediately because they're no longer on the board.
Is that a cancellation clause for an Evo hacker?
I don't know.
No,
that's one of, I think stuff like that, because of this scenario, we are going to find little clauses in there that need to be addressed. But I'd rather see those come up and be addressed and have a scenario like this.
I had a similar I believe it or not had a similar idea for the missions I didn't get written in time, which was the idea of grabbing a HVT and extracting with the HVT. The idea being that you're trying to kidnap somebody.
Yeah.
What's interesting with this is if you extract too early, you're left with however many points down. You're left with however many points down, which obviously means that your opponent might be going, I can extract turn 3, there's no retreat in this scenario, I'm just going to obliterate you, and then go back. I think also this is a really good mission to try reinforcements with, because you could extract your 100 or whatever points and then drop in the reinforcements.
Isn't reinforcements triggered on victory points?
Reinforcements are triggered on victory points. Reinforcements would not function well with this scenario.
Oh, because the
extracted troops still count toward your victory points. So you could, this scenario, if you used reinforcements, you could actually lock yourself out of being able to bring your reinforcements in.
I really think however you have to word it.
I need to have a look at the.
Sorry. Except for that, turn 3, you could always bring them in.
Yes, yeah, turn 3, you can always bring them in. Yeah.
Okay, so you can't lock yourself out of it, but you can force yourself to not be able to bring them in turn 1 or 2.
Trent is saying, wait, so I assume he's got something to say. Reinforcements is triggered by victory points. Yeah. That was my understanding.
Yeah, and the fact that they still count. I reckon I don't know how you'd have to word it, but I reckon they should, for the sake of reinforcements that shouldn't count to your victory points. Be interesting to like be able to pull in your reinforcements early in this like one scenario. Yeah, it's a cute little scenario. But again, just like the other two we've covered, still relatively order intensive. You've got to obviously do you got to generate the IDs or download the IDs. You then got to pass them off to anything that isn't able to get their own IDs. So some sort of I don't know, a tag, for instance.
Yeah.
Which is not a good example because you got the pilot. But anyway, but yeah, to use that to then pass it off to then go and scan it to extract it. I think it is going to be very much a game of getting your IDs, giving it to the guys that you want to extract turn 3, and then on turn 3 extracting as many points as possible.
Yeah, or if it seems like something's gonna die, just try and extract it.
That's the good point too. If something's going south for a model and you're just like, oh, I just got to get this thing out of here. It's a last ditch thing.
Yeah.
Just pull it out.
Tag with 1 wound.
Yeah, anything. Yeah, anything with 1 wound. I don't know if I suppose Mormor is a good example of it. Mormor in Dogged State.
Something in Dogged.
Actually, anything in Dogged State.
No, but specifically the Mormor because it's really expensive.
Oh, okay.
That's
I was looking at baggage applies to if you are extracted with baggage.
20 points.
You count plus 20 points toward your extracted army points. So extracting Maggie could almost lock in 4 victory points or 4 objective points.
Yeah, because that's if it was a 300-point tournament and you extracted a Maggie who's not hugely expensive. I mean, it's not cheap, but not hugely expensive.
Correct. It's still less than extracting an avatar.
Yeah. What's
even with baggage?
So what's that? Is it 100 points if you extract a Maggie?
Yeah, Maggie, 85 or 88. So.
Yeah, you're looking at 118 points. Probably.
That said, all the baggage bots, well worth getting them extracted.
And Evo Hacker bot. So I had a look at Evo Supportware. Supportware program is automatically cancelled if the target of the supportware unit is targeted by a new supportware program, or if the hacker running the program enters the isolated state or any null state. They're not entering an isolated state or a null state. Therefore, the supportware stays.
Okay.
I would assume. Also, that interesting how it would interact with lieutenants. Lieutenant's not on the game table. If you extract your lieutenant's not on the game table, so it doesn't provide their order, but they're not entering the isolated or a null state. So therefore,
no, because lost lieutenant also includes if they're not on the table.
No, it says if they haven't been deployed, if they were not previously deployed on the game table. So if they if they had been deployed at the start of the game and then were extracted,
yes,
and they were still your lieutenant, you functionally render yourself immune to loss of lieutenant.
I would say that like the change to this would be that an extracted troop just enters the extracted state, which has the null tag.
That would be okay. That would be an interesting way of doing it.
That would patch it up.
Because you've already got that clause that say that troops that have been extracted. So you would say that troops that are in the extracted state are never considered to be killed. That's the only thing that's important there. Otherwise, otherwise, the very first thing I'd do in this game is have whatever my cheap ass lieutenant is, I just pop it out and be like, "Fuck you! No, you don't get to deal with my lieutenant."
Yeah, but I mean, like, look, I don't often play games where loss of lieutenant is actually an important factor. Less so now that I'm playing Combined Army. Like, I mean, I can count on like 2 hands, and I've played what would seem to be hundreds of games now. I think I can count in 2 hands the number of times I've been put of loss of lieutenant. I think I can count on another set of two hands
Rank much?
the amount of times I've put someone into loss of lieutenant. It's like, unless someone's being very, very forward with their LT, I don't think it's something that people really need to worry about too much. So, who cares if you extract your lieutenant or not? Otherwise, Kuroshi's just going to go zoom, zoom, zoom.
Well, I mean, we are spending all the we are spending all this time talking about two very niche things. I mean, how often do you really see at this point Evo bots buffing things up as well?
How many IDs can somebody hold? As
Uh,
many as they like.
One. Common rules for ID tokens: a trooper can only have a single ID at a time.
There you go. Yeah, perfect. That's good.
However, there is no lockout on the console, so a specialist could grab an ID, someone could grab it off of them, they could reactivate, grab a new ID, someone else could take it off of them.
I like the idea that depending on how that you board the setup, you can like Conga line the ID. Some guy picks it up, and they have one really fast troop ferrying them in between them. Yeah, no, it's again, all these scenarios are very similar in the fact that they are relatively order intensive. I like that said, I like the scoring in this one. I wouldn't say that this is a particularly low scoring game. You just have to be really strategic about what you extract to try and get the most bang for your buck.
Well, almost every scoring point in this game is based on relative to your opponent.
Yeah.
So someone is going to get the points.
Yeah, exactly.
We're playing to see who.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice to see that obviously that they've split these missions up, because I remember reading Dante's first version of it and my head spinning with all the things they had with like the star-crossed lovers, and it would have been funny.
Yeah.
It would have been funny if they kept calling them, instead of IDs, kept calling them Mikeys, and people going, "What the fuck is a Mikey?" For any international listeners listening, a Mikey is like a bus pass in Melbourne. I don't know why it's called a Mikey card. It's just like legitimately the name of it, MYKI.
I think it's because it's supposed to be your key to public transit.
Oh, okay, there you go. Yeah, it's just like any other sort of
Spells it all weird.
Yeah, any other sort of bus pass. I know in the UK they've got similar sort of things. You load it up with money, or you pay for like a month subscription to public transport. Okay, so those are the main two new missions. Maybe just quickly now we'll burn through the missions that are the same as we had before, but might have some slight changes from ITS 14. We'll quickly go over and give our opinion on whether that really impacts the mission itself. So we start with acquisition, where they've removed the Corsair, which will be common if there was a Corsair or a Banshee from ITS 14. That'll be gone now because it's an extra. And remove the low gravity areas, but added in crazy creatures.
What should I say about that? Crazy creatures are good.
Yeah, I can see.
Yeah.
I can see. I can see the crazy creatures frustrating holding the point, but like I said, I would just kill the crazy creature as soon as you can.
Yeah, it spices up the free model you get for the mission.
Yeah, exactly. Biotech Vol, nothing's changed there. It's still your good old get out of that zone, or if you're like one of our more inventive listeners, keep have just Asawiras sitting in the Biotech 4 zone, and have them heal / regenerate, or just take no damage, which is a fucking hilarious idea.
ETS 9 is fun.
Yeah. Capture and protect. Decompression zones are replaced with the QAZ zones, and Master Breacher replaced with the HAZOPs. So small change there. However, I think the QAZ zone will have a better impact than the decompression zones did.
Yeah, like we've already said.
Yeah. I don't think
So
don't know if it's necessarily going to be like a different impact. It's still going to be that sort of blocker there, but at the very least, it's going to add danger to it. Countermeasures again removed the Secdet and added crazy creatures. They've also
so
go on.
there was a wording change in countermeasures. The 3 starting classified objectives are now drawn before choosing army lists, whereas in the previous season they were drawn at the start of the game, but it didn't specify where in the start. So like normally with classifieds you draw them before you choose your army. In countermeasures now, the first 3 that come out you get to see before choosing your army,
which is really good because is good because it's nice to see that would really turn, like, first turn is really powerful in that mission.
Yes,
Because you get to pick both the army that can, like, and hopefully the way you deploy to, like, perfectly get those classifieds. Because I think too rarely in Infinity do we see missions that really are advantageous to the person who goes first.
Yeah, and then they go, and then the classified just cucks you and goes, okay, you've got capture, rescue, and predator. Do you do those?
True, but at the very least, you know it from the get-go.
You do.
Although, I suppose you only have to do capture or whatever for a turn, don't you? Because it changes that end of the game to end of turn conditions, doesn't it?
Yeah.
End of game round. Changes them to end of game round.
Yeah. All game round.
Yeah, not end of turn.
That's bad, whatever. Decapitation, removed no gravity zones, replaced them with quantum anomaly zones. Master Breach have been traded to Hazops. So again, about the same as it was before, with the zones now probably having a better impact. Firefight, removed the low gravity zone, replaced with the QAZ zones, and removed the Corsair. Frostbite, we've gotten rid of the decompression zones. Master Breacher is now Hazop, whatever. And the Shazvasti and baggage rules now apply to Frostbite.
Yeah, there were 2 missions that previously did not have those that they've added them to this year.
Errata, I was wrong. Countermeasures, end of player turn, not end of game round for end of game scoring. Classifieds. There you go.
Turn. Wow. Yeah. So
it is player turn.
Yeah. So that's still really powerful. You just pick, like, I don't know, your fast forward deployment shit or something. It just reminded me. Frostbite. Does it only do 1 hit to your dudes?
No, Frostbite. If they're in the center zone at the end of the game, if they do not have a heating system, so not a REM, not a tag, not heavy infantry, not the Master Breacher, or hazmat ops, they die.
They go to dead, or they go unconscious?
If they're not in a heated zone, they die.
They die.
Yep, they are killed.
So
this means that
they go to dead.
They're dead. Yeah, they're dead.
Yeah.
They don't go to unconscious. They go to dead.
So then, what's the point?
They counted as dead.
What's the point in Shazvasti?
Because if you have Shazvasti in a
because they still count as heavy infantry they also still have heavy infantry.
If you have a heavy infantry or a Sphinx in there that's unconscious, the Shazvasti rule still applies.
Right.
Likewise, baggage bots now apply the baggage bonus if they're in that zone.
Today I learned that Sphinx has the Shazvasti rule.
I thought about that when I said that and went, I don't know if that happens.
It doesn't. They don't. They have remote presence. They don't have Shazvasti.
Oh, okay. There's no Shazvasti in there.
Does the Shazvasti rule count towards VP?
No. It's just toward controlling zones.
Just for controlling zones. Okay, yeah. So if you're unconscious in the middle as Shazvasti, sure, whatever. I honestly, anything with, like, controller zone, I just assumed the Shazvasti works anyway.
Likewise, but apparently there were 2 that didn't have them that they added them to.
Just haven't had that combination of things happen yet.
Yeah.
Frontline has removed the decompression zones, replaced them with anomaly zones. It's probably going to be a pretty common thing we're going to see. Highly classified. Master Breach now has op. No zero gravity zones. There's no more extreme like red deck mode because I don't think the red deck exists anymore.
I'm all but certain it hasn't, but I don't remember if it's been actually verified.
There's a green deck and a red deck. Some people in Europe already have their decks. There's a green deck and a red deck. The red deck is the battle operations deck for Resilience.
Okay, right,
Okay.
yeah.
That's it.
Just which we'll talk about for a short amount of time soon. Just getting through Living a Sabotage. Oh, sorry, and joint.
Highly classified.
Yeah, highly classified.
Added joint command.
Yeah, joint command. Living and Sabotage, which will come big if you need O12 prestige and stuff. Living and Sabotage, no more low gravity area or the Corsair, added joint command. Mind Wipe's the same. Panic Room, they've added Shadows Fasting and Baggage, obviously for controlling the center room. Have also added joint command. Power Pack, they removed the CSU or the Sec Det, added joint command. Supplies, they've removed the low gravity area and the Sec Det, but have added Crazy Creatures. Supremacy no longer have the no gravity zone or the CSU Sec Det. They have added Crazy Creatures. Armory and Unmasking are unchanged. As far as the direct action goes, Annihilation's obviously been moved into the direct action missions. So it doesn't have. I didn't think it had any classifieds before, did it? Yeah.
No, they removed low gravity and tossed it to the direct action. But otherwise, it's the same.
Yeah, but Battleground, Cutthroat Superiority, and Uplift Center, for the most part, haven't been changed. The only difference is if there was a CSU or Corsair there before, they're not there anymore.
Yep.
So, the last introduction thing that was introduced to ITS 15 was the resilience operations. And unfortunately, no one here on this cast has had the privilege of being able to play it yet because we haven't had the privilege of getting our hands on the new decks yet.
I am going to be printing off all of the sort of leaks that were pushed out earlier on last week, and playing a Resilience Ops mission very soon, I think.
So I'm not going to describe it because I reckon one of you two will do it better. Because I'm not. I think I know how it works, but I'm not entirely sure.
I can tackle this one.
Yeah. So go for it, Josh.
All right. So Resilience Ops is, if anyone's ever played a bit of 40k, it's I think it was in 40k. It's Yams, from 40k. We have a deck that has battle conditions and tactical objectives. There's a couple of ways that it's always set up in terms of the game mode. There's always 2 beacons on each side at the edge of each player's deployment zone. There is also always a HVT, and each trooper possesses something called a beeper. They are the ways that we interact with the tactical objectives. At the start of the game, each player will draw 2 battle conditions and 2 tactical objectives. They will pick which one they want to play, and then those battle conditions and tactical objectives are compared to each other. If they pick the same one, they have to change. So there are 4 total things that change the resilience op. There's 2 battle conditions and 2 tactical objectives. Battle conditions can be things like the whole map is jungle terrain, or you have a whole map of jungle terrain, and then another one could be 2 desert. Each person gets a desert terrain saturation zone. So it's sort of your standard terrain rules that we've seen interspersed in ITSs already. Tactical objectives are ways that we introduce objectives to the actual operation. It's how we interact with the game elements on the table. It'll be things like place a beeper in your opponent's deployment zone, or be in contact with a beacon, or do something to a HVT. Kind of a mixture of what we already have as ITS objectives as well as classified objectives, just merged together, designed to create a different game experience every time you play. And because this is printed in the ITS document, it means it's a valid tournament mission as well, or at least a valid tournament play style.
And so, do you still draw your own classifieds?
You do not draw classifieds.
Okay, right.
These are place classifieds.
Right. So you've sort of got table-wide objectives and the tactical objectives, and you've got obviously let's just say table-wide battle conditions, which is like a terrain or some other effect. We obviously haven't seen the entire deck, so we don't know the entirety of them.
The storm one was definitely the most interesting one.
Oh yeah, what was that? What was that one?
Troopers with MSV, biometric fire zone, X visor have +1 to their ballistic skill.
I would have thought it's the other way around, but okay.
No, they designed it so that
there's only benefits.
Basically, they're all benefits. There's no penalties, which is similar to like how terrain zones or board-wide terrain has played a role in the last 2 ITS seasons, where it doesn't penalize, but it gives a buff to people who are specialized in it.
And do you like, you know how you get like a beacon, HOT, and all those parts? Do you put all of those bits down as part of the scenery then draw the cards?
The tactical elements state that you place all the tactical elements except for the turret, which would go down if a battle conditions card specifies that it goes down, and then you place the beacons always in the same spots, and then you HVTs, which you put your HVT down as normal.
Yeah. So the beacons or the beepers are equipment that troopers tap, so you don't have to place them.
Yeah. So like it says the tactical objectives are worth 3 objective points each, but you've only got 2 of them, right?
No. I think Josh misstated. So each player shuffles their own objectives decks, draws 4 cards, and discards 1.
My apologies.
And they only apply to the player who selected them, and they're private. So they're basically like 3-point classifieds each.
There you
go. Oh, okay. That's almost an interesting mind game of almost trying to hide from your... Like, if you don't think you can do it at the end of your turn, it'd be worth not attempting to, so your opponent can't go, oh, you need to control that. I'm going to defend that thing. Okay.
Now... There's also a command token use. Once the tactical objective has been drawn, players can spend 1 command. Oh, sorry, that's before the game still. You can spend a command token to discard 1 and draw a new one. So if you draw 4 and 2 of them are bad, you can pick 1 to discard. And you can spend a command token to randomly replace 1 of them.
Okay, but from what this describes, like the card will do this like level of things to get up to 3 points.
Correct. And from the ones that I've seen, it is a degree of risk reward for how many points you get out of it.
Yeah. So
some of them can be like, I think one was very similar to what is it, like demolition, but basically put a decharge on a piece of terrain. And it's 2 points if it's inside your opponent's half of the board, but 3 points if it's inside their deployment zone. But you have to declare it in secret before the game starts.
I mean, you have to declare sabotage. I should point out you technically have to declare sabotage as well.
Yeah. But you have to declare it in secret.
Oh, okay. So you have to be like, I'm going for the 3 points.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. One that I saw that I was really interested in was King of the Hill, which was a circular area in the middle of the table. It's the hill, and you have to dominate it for 2 points and subjugate it for 3, which is a new term that we haven't seen that is included in the glossary, which is basically that you subjugate a zone if you are the only player to have a trooper in that zone.
Right. So it's sort of like controlling, but for an area.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I think there has been a call for the resilience operations. I feel, or something like the resilience operations for a long time. That sort of random mission generation that we see in a lot of other games. I mean, you talked about 40k, where I know at least like I think it's called Maelstrom, where the
Yeah,
objectives changed every turn, which is a bit different. But they also had a different mode where you could pick like deployment area effect and like a grand objective throughout the entire sort of thing. And this is like that. Although luckily, like you said, they're all advantages, because I know in 40k you could have some that were just like every single unit you roll a dice on a d6, they take a bunch of wounds, because it's like you're fighting in a meteor shower.
Yeah.
For
the ones I've seen, having all them being like all the terrain stuff is basically benefits.
Yes.
Unless it's something like a suppression zone where it's the same thing for everyone, which makes it just more fun.
Yeah, they also tend to be like one of two things, because the one I saw, which was the desert one, is like desert terrain across the middle or the sack zone stuff.
All of the terrain cards are like that. They give you two choices. One is to put down either one or two, depending on the type of terrain, basically decompression zones. And the other option is to make a strip of terrain across the middle of the battlefield that will give a terrain boost, basically, to specific types of troopers.
I'm gonna look forward to the Hakazlam players every time they shuffle that thing, going, please give me the desert one. Please give me the desert one.
Yes, after my comments on the last episode, when that card was spoiled, I got personal messages about like, look, desert terrain is relevant.
Like for Hakazlam, that's universal, isn't it? Every single model has desert terrain.
No, it's not universal, but it is on a lot of models, and I don't know if we actually pay any points for it. I have never seen the math on it, but like all the Ghulams have it.
Yeah.
Most of the Grunts have it. So, but then stuff like Tariq Mansouri went through the Super Soldier program, forgot how to walk on sand.
Well, I'll still point out that he just got too heavy.
Gets eaten by sandworms.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't know how to walk without rid of them.
Yeah, most of Caledonia, most of Morats have terrain jungle as well. Like, I think there's a whole fire team dedicated to Morats gaining terrain jungle if they join that fire team.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to have some extra terrain rules on there.
And each of the terrain cards I've seen, the decompression zones had like almost all of them were terrain plus suppression. But most of them had an additional feature. So I think the 0G one is white noise. The desert one is low vis.
I think the mountain one like gave climbing plus or something. Gave a benefit to climbing plus.
Yeah. The mountain one gives climbing plus to people with terrain mountain, which immediately got a response of, "Look, my Yodam has climbing plus."
Oh, it's better than the campaign where the Yodam had combat drop.
Oh.
Goodness.
That was an old. It's. I think it was the one after the Yotam. Oh, it might have been the Jotun blockade, where there was a mission where anything with mountain terrain had combat drop, and everyone's like, "Oh, I could just combat drop in Yotams." So I think this will obviously be one of our one of our challenges to try and sort of encourage our community and here in Australia.
Big time spoiler alert. This will be our next challenge.
I spoiled that at the beginning anyway. But I'm really looking forward to this. I really do like the idea of, because I think we had a challenge a long time ago, which was build this like an all comers list and tell us what your experience is with that. And this is the sort of thing where that all comers list, right, may really flourish in it. The one thing, and it probably says here, I just haven't read it in detail enough, is when do you pick your army list in these sort of missions?
So you draw your objectives after you learn what faction your opponent plays, but before you choose your army list.
That's cool.
Right. Okay. So it's standard sort of thing. You pick your army list after you draw your cards.
Yep. Yep.
Mm.
Fair enough. But
The battle conditions are done after initiative.
so you draw the tactical and then the battle conditions.
The tactical are done before army lists are picked, and then the battle conditions are done between initiative and deployment.
Right. Yeah. But at that point, you've got your you've chosen your list.
Yes, you've already locked in your army list, so you can't have like this army list is all mountain and this army list is all desert. And I'll see what terrain card I draw.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, what about you guys? You gonna be trying this out, playing it when it
Yes.
comes out?
Big time. Yes, absolutely. I think it's going to dominate most of my casual play, unless I'm preparing for a tournament.
Yeah.
I think that it's just going to be the way that I play the game.
I think the other thing is I'm looking forward to seeing this almost in like a tournament session where
I'd love to play it. I'd love to have a
everybody has a different experience, right?
My aim was to in either November or December to organize a 3-round resilience ops tournament.
It's almost like it almost takes away. It's like you can with resilience operations, you can pick the army that you love, that you fucking love playing, right? And there's no pressure on you to like, you know when you look at some tournament missions and you have an army that maybe you're playing and you go, oh, they're just gonna suffer playing these particular missions. Like let's say it's like, I don't know, unmasking, like things that like all benefit hackers, and you're loving Ariadna. You're like, I'm just gonna suffer playing this. This particular one doesn't matter. You just pick whatever army you love, whatever lists you love. You go to the tournament, and you just try and make the smart choices when you do the draws.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I am.
Yeah, I think I agree with Josh. This is probably going to be a really good go-to for game night pickup games, where that's one of the challenges I've had with Infinity is game nights where you kind of have to
there's no tournament
coordinate it or to have some lists that'll cover a fair number of missions because you're not quite sure what other people there will want to play. But this gives a really good we can both show up, not have planned this out the previous week, bring a list that we're interested in playing, and pull out resilience. We can also, if we're both interested in playing specific missions, do those too.
I usually roll the D20 of Destiny to see what ITS mission I'm going to play, but then I just roll it again when I hit a mission that I don't like. Yeah. So might as well just pick a mission that I like or play Resilience Ops.
I think the Resilience also pairs nicely with the new missions, because the new missions are all very complicated. They are tough missions. They are multi-stage, require a lot of forethought and planning, and really punish the player who tries to play them like Firefight.
Yeah.
So having it would be interesting to see the ITS missions move to now be freer to have more of the complicated missions, because there's resilience on the other side to balance them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's maybe the hidden gem of this particular resilience things is in the casual play. Is it's an ITS thing where we're already sort of structured in ITS, but resilience allows for you to go and say, I want to play, I don't know what the fuck I want to play, let's just do resilience. Right, we can walk in and just deal out the cards of conditions. Okay, this is the mission that we're playing. It also means that in between tournaments, like we are in Melbourne right now, in a bit of a lull as far as tournaments goes, you're just like, I want to keep my skills up. All of these cards will have, do a small objective, hold something, dominate something. right? And you're like, okay, I can plan around doing all 3 of those things at once. I can't wait until Josh hurries up and gets his order in. It's totally his fault.
It's not my fault. Storms off the South China Sea delayed everything.
Yeah, well, why did you cause the storms?
It's my fault.
I know you're an X-Man.
Oh,
I
goodness
know you're
me.
some Nymphidian or whatever princess.
Oh, okay.
Is that what Storm is? She's like a Nigerian princess, isn't she?
I don't know. I don't know.
I'm gonna get
Do
yelled.
not-
don't remember.
I'm gonna get yelled.
I
at.
think
not
she's
a-
from one of their fictional.
Yeah, it's like a fictional
nations.
African country, and I'm pretty sure she's a princess of it. Anyway, this is this is only for one nerd fandom. We don't have to bring in Marvel into this.
Yeah.
Look, what did I say about this in episode 100? It's just primarily not a 40k.
Yeah. Even then, we brought it in a little bit.
Yeah.
New Primaris jump marines, though.
Oh no! Stop! Please don't.
All right, guys. I think we have covered everything we can with ITS 15. I think maybe in 6 months we'll revisit this to tell you how it goes, and then probably
And how wrong we were.
Yep, and yeah, exactly. And in the next couple of months, guys, look forward to our resilience episode where we'll talk about sort of our first impressions of the resilience operations and the deck itself.
A quick Google: Storm married T'Challa, which makes her the Queen Consort of Wakanda. Also, Trent has kindly, because while we've been recording this, we've missed a brief army update. The Zellenkrieger, as of this recording, Zellenkrieger and a couple of new profiles have been added to Bakuna, Tuguska, Druze, Dashat, Starko, Caledonia, Vanilla Ariadna. Some changes to fire teams, and they've removed the Tractor Mule from Spyral and Tohar, and the Tractor Mule FO and Repeater option, because of it was only relevant in the previous ITS season.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Wait,
Yeah,
wait.
they said long ago
Okay.
they were going to remove those.
All right, maybe if there's anything significant, maybe we'll cover it next episode.
Not really. Just
It looks like it's
mention.
just the new
Okay.
profiles and then where they fit into fire teams.
Wait, so they've dropped reinforcements into sectorials?
No.
No.
New,
There's
the new comic.
Zellenkrieger, Extreme Zellenkrieger,
right. Yeah.
Denma, Conley, and Uhahu. Where they fit in and how they fit into fire teams.
You mean the expensive Morlocks?
Uhahu's been changed to S1, which I think is a fantastic change.
That's so funny. Oh, that's really funny because she's a good hacker. The fact that she's like running around like, oh man, there's like you in this battlefield you hear like this pitter patter of feet, like Chard's feet, and suddenly like this big heavy infantry guy, and suddenly you just freeze up because this Chard-like looking thing has stopped you from moving.
It's great. It's great.
That's
little addition there.
All right, guys. Hope you had a good time. I had a great time talking about ITS 15. I've had a really good time playing it, and I can't wait to do this season. But I think we're going to finish it off there. I've been your host, Jacob.
I've been Josh.
And I've been Nick.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.